And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive Friday, December 26th. Back to just a normal old slate. We got 7 games on the DraftKings slate, 9 games overall for today. Kind of a weird slate, too. A little difficult, concentrated ownership at the top, but also spread out concentration. We'll get to that in a bit because we're going to break down every single game. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. That would be at Josh Engleman and at DK__DFS. What's going on, man? You ready to talk about this one? We got a weird one today.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting 7-game slate. Happy it is Friday, even though I was like, wait, what day is it again? I'm like, oh, it's Friday. Nice.
Dude, I thought it was Saturday for half the day. Things were happening, and I was like, what is today now?
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
No idea. But yeah, as you mentioned, a pretty interesting slate. A lot of moving parts, some starting lineups too. That we'll talk about. So ready to dive in.
Well, let's just dive right in because I think that's the easiest way to handle this. We're going to go game by game as we typically do on the Deeper Dive. First game up.
Sorry, am I frozen on the stream? My face.
You are frozen on the stream now that I look.
Should I just leave and rejoin then?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right, 1 sec.
As DK gets himself back in here, we're going to look at Miami and Atlanta first. Atlanta, last I looked, were 3.5-point favorites with a 250-point total, which is insane. I've got a sneaky suspicion that DK's camera is not working. But we shall see where this ends up in the next couple minutes as I refresh the betting lines on this one. So 3.5-point line, 250 total is still what we have. The injury report has been cleaned up quite a bit officially. Nikola Jovic is available. He's probable. Pelle Larsson is available. He's probable. Keshad Johnson is probable. Bam Adebayo, on the other hand, is doubtful for this one. Bunch of Q tags on the Hawks side, not important Q tags, just G League dudes. So I don't think that's going to matter all that much. What is mattering is the ownership coming in on Miami. And also what's mattering, apparently, is the lack of usefulness to either a camera or microphone for DK. I can't see him right now. There's like a waiting room, so to speak, to get into this. And his just says devices not connected. So tough scenes right now for DK. Let's see if he's sending me DMs in any way. Okay, he bailed again. I'm hoping he was able to hear me say what I was seeing. But let me go ahead and yeah, he did DM me. So as he works out whatever technical issues are striking him, we'll talk through a little bit about what's going on in Miami. And that is a lack of Bam Adebayo and a lack of Tyler Hero and not a lack of DK. Are you back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
That was so
good,
strange.
Brother.
Someone tried calling me and then it like disconnected everything. And then, I was having trouble for some reason, like reconnecting it. So
I've been down that road before. So all I've done is set the table for Miami and Atlanta. And I was just getting into the fact that with no Bam Adebayo, or what looks like no Bam Adebayo, we've got 45% ownership to Khalil Ware, 45% ownership to Jaime Jaquez, 40 more for Norm Powell, 25 more for Wiggins. Davion Mitchell's getting 20. Pelle Larsson is getting around 10. Jalen Johnson is in the middle of all of that. We'll get to that Atlanta piece, but how are you seeing this Miami team? Because they are pretty clearly a priority.
Yeah, Miami looks really good. They're pretty shorthanded here, obviously, without the guys that you mentioned. Starting lineup, I do want to keep an eye on it. I'm pretty sure we're going to get Powell, Khalil Ware, Wiggins, Davion. And then the fifth starter, I think, could be a few different guys. I think most likely Larsson, but it could go a couple different directions there. I guess starting with Khalil Ware, he's projected right now for about 50% ownership. And I think it makes sense. Like, he is underpriced without Bam. His minutes are way more secure. Rebounding numbers go up, obviously. And like, we've seen what this guy can do when given minutes, even alongside Bam. Like, you just look back a couple of games, 35 minutes against the Knicks, he went for 57 fantasy points, 28 minutes against Boston going for 51, 30 minutes against Brooklyn going for 48 and a half fantasy points. So, yeah, I mean, they don't really have a backup center. I think you'll probably see some Nikola Jovic as some small ball five behind him. But yeah, I think Ware looks great. Totally understand why he's getting the ownership. Looking at the rest of this team, Norm Powell getting about 40% projected ownership. Him and Jaime Jaquez both around that mark. Obviously, Norm Powell going to get a usage bump here without Tyler Hero, without Bam Adebayo. Reasonable price point, maybe going a little bit over owned, but definitely does have a pretty high ceiling. Jaquez, I don't think starts. There's a chance he could. I mean, we did see him get the start like a few games ago, and Miami was really shorthanded. But he led the team potential assists last game. I mean, he's going to have a really nice role here, ball handling usage as well, and he's definitely underpriced for his role right now. So he looks like one of the better point per dollar plays there in the mid range. Andrew Wiggins, I'm kind of indifferent on at 5,700, but does feel a little bit underpriced. The value for Miami, I do think Nikola Jovic is a little bit interesting at 3% ownership. Now, minutes, obviously a little bit up in the air, but I do think if like something happens to Ware, if it gets in foul trouble or something weird happens, like Jovic would probably benefit. So I do have a little bit of interest in him as an unknown value option. And then, like I said, keep an eye on the starting lineup. If it's Larson, I think he's playable at 3,800. Obviously, his first game back in a couple of weeks. I don't think we would get like huge minutes for Larson, but if he starts, you're probably expecting like low 20s. So yeah, overall, I think this is definitely one of the better teams to get to on the slate.
Yeah, I don't have too much different to what you said. Ware looks great, 40 something percent owned. That's right where I am. I'm actually right around the field on Powell and Wiggins. I am taking one big stand, and as of right now, it's on Jaime Jaquez. I think it's just the positional eligibility that's really helping out here. 6K, you can put him in at guard or forward. On a day like today, I kind of like that flexibility with the way everything is set up. So he is the one dude I'm taking like a pretty massive stand on. I'm a bit over the field on Davion. Right now, I don't really have Larson or Jovic. If I was going to get to one of these guys, it would be Jovic. Larson might start. I don't know how much that would really change anything for me. I've got him at a decent enough minutes projection that I don't think that impact would be huge. But Jovic I see as a guy that could really have a completely different minutes. I mean, always. Every time Nikola Jovic plays, I think he could play anywhere from 0 to 30 minutes. His range is insane. If anything at all happens to Khalil Ware, they're going to try to have Jovic out there for a bit. Now, he is constantly getting himself injured in weird ways. So you never know if that's going to happen. The fact that he's power forward center is really, really helpful. Realistically, they could start him. I don't think that they will. I think he's probably towards the bottom of the list. But if they were trying to maintain this double big look in some way, I don't know why they would. I looked into this on the strategy show. It has not been good this year so far. So I don't know what they're doing, but that's conversation for a different day. It's just right now, I think you got to get to a lot of Miami. They're shorthanded with a star out, technically 2 stars. And this total is 250 points. This is a massive game environment for fantasy. When you start removing people from the equation, it becomes a bit of a problem. We aren't really removing people from Atlanta, though. Obviously, Kristaps Porzingis not around, but he never is. 10K Jalen Johnson is getting the most ownership from Atlanta. He's the only guy getting more than 10% ownership. And I'm pretty cool with it at 10K. I do find Trae Young interesting, but where do you want to go with Atlanta if we're going to be getting this much Miami?
Yeah, so with the Atlanta side, I'll start with Jalen Johnson. Right now, ownership, not crazy on him. Optimal lineups are spitting out a little bit more balanced. So he's only projected right now for about 20% ownership. But even with Trae Young in, his role has still been great. If you're taking a look at his rates with Trae Young in last game, he led the team with a 31% usage rate. 2 games ago, he led the team with a 30% usage rate. The game before that, he had a very high usage rate, but that was without Trae Young. So, like, in his ball handling role, still been really good too. Like last game, still had made 79 passes, 12 potential assists. So, yes, Trae Young being in obviously affects the ball handling role a bit, but still really nice role, still really good rebounder as well, and playing close to 40 minutes in competitive games. You already mentioned the total in this one, right? 250. And so 10K, I still think is a little bit underpriced right now for Jalen Johnson. So yeah, I think he looks like one of the better spend ups on the slate. The rest of the team not getting much ownership. I do think that is interesting. Okongwu as a contrarian center at 7,300, I think is firmly in play here. Minutes, he's played 40 and 36 over the last couple of games. So yeah, pretty good point per minute player right now, not getting a ton of ownership. Now, high opportunity cost. We do have Khalil Ware on the slate. We have Diabate we'll talk about. Those two getting a lot of ownership. But I do think Okongwu is still playable. And then Trae Young himself, 8,800. So the minutes have slowly been climbing up on him. 20 minutes in his first game back, then 26, then 31. And so I think you're probably expecting low 30s minutes from Trae, but would I be surprised if he played 35 minutes tonight? No. And right now he's only projecting for about 5% ownership. I think he's a really interesting tournament play if that holds. So yeah, I like him quite a bit as a contrarian option. I don't think I would get to anyone else like Dyson Daniels or Nikhil on this slate. I think there's just better options in the mid-range. And I don't think we need to get to the value with like Ricochet or Krejci. But yeah, Jalen, I think looks like one of the better spend ups. And then Okongwu and Trae as contrarian options, I think are both pretty good plays.
Same exact take here on Jalen Johnson. Like I'm right there around that 30% mark. And I shared the same sentiment. That was my thought process on Trae this morning. Like, what if he just plays 35 minutes like it's a normal little game and he's just back? Like, that's going to happen, I would imagine. The goal is going to be that Trae Young gets back to playing the same minutes that he typically played, which would be 34, 35, something in that neighborhood. If it's today, he is underpriced currently and in a game environment that really supports him having a massive day. Like, there's a 30 and 10 game in here pretty easily for what we have today. I got nothing else for this game on the DraftKings side. I'm going to pull it up on the FanDuel end so that we can take a peek at all of the ownership. So let me grab Atlanta. Let me grab Miami. Because slightly different experience, slightly different ownership in certain places. Norm Powell, still heavy chalk, but the most heavy chalk on the FanDuel side at 50%. Jaquez and Ware are both around 40. Then you get Wiggins at 25, Davion at 20, Trae Young a bit more owned on the FanDuel side, which should make perfect sense. You have to roster 2 point guards, so that's just naturally increased on guys like Trae Young. Pelle Larsson is pulling a little bit from the value side, but Jalen Johnson is 11K on FanDuel. Very different play between DK and FanDuel. Much more expensive, much less owned, a bit more contrarian if you're going that direction. Game numero 2. Hornets Magic. Part of me is very happy that I'm blacked out to this one. But what are you going to do? I'm sure we'll talk about how LaMelo Ball may or may not play more minutes. It'll happen eventually. Again.
Yep.
We're doing the same Moussa Diabate experience that we've had for the past few games. He is 4,600, center only. No Ryan Kalkbrenner. No Mason Plumlee. On the opposite side for the Magic, no Jalen Suggs. No Goga Batadze. But officially, welcome back, Tristan da Silva. He's been out for a couple games. He is back now. So heavy chalk on Moussa Diabate. About 20% ownership coming into Paolo Banchero. And then very minimal coming into anybody else in this game. Do you have any unique thoughts on Diabate right now?
No, I pretty much agree with the ownership here. Like last game, he played, where was it? 35 minutes, and he lost like the last minute and a half due to a blowout. So as long as he avoids foul trouble, you're probably getting at least 30 minutes from Diabate here. On the season, if we're looking at his fantasy rates, he's about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute player, but then again, I think he could very easily play 35 plus here. So totally agree with the ownership. Kind of hinted at it, like him and Khalil Ware are the chalk at center, but yeah, he's very clearly underpriced right now. for his role without Kalkbrenner and without Plumlee. So projects as one of the best values in the slate.
Yeah, the price just isn't rising in a way to catch up to like how much playing time he has to get right now, which is funny because like if Kalkbrenner misses one more game, then Diabate will be extra special, unplayable in that next one once he gets back because he's just going to be way, way, way more expensive. How do you feel about this like breakaway Paolo Banchero ownership today in comparison to everybody else? He's kind of on an island here.
Yeah, I think it kind of makes sense, though. I do have some interest in some of the other pieces for tournaments, but I do think that Paolo is your most optimal play on Orlando right now, projecting for a little bit above 20% ownership. So his rates right now on the year without Franz and without Suggs, sitting at about 30% usage rate and 25% assist percentage. The potential assists have been great for Paolo over the last few games without Suggs. So the role is really, really solid for him. He kind of had an outlier bad game last time out against Portland, but not reading too much into that. Previously, 34 minutes, 46 fantasy points, 42 minutes, 51 fantasy points, 39 minutes, 66 fantasy points. So I think the ceiling is very high here on Paolo. I like the matchup for him. And yeah, I think with Franz out the court, with Suggs out the court, he should definitely be, probably a mid 9K player, and he's 8,700. So I think he projects as a really good spend up right now. Right up there, I would say, with Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, I think he looks solid. I love the matchup for him, obviously, against Charlotte. I'm sitting right around the field. I'm actually a bit higher than the field on Desmond Bane right now. I don't know if it's just the shooting guard thing or to me, I'm kind of looking at him in the same way that I'm looking at Trae Young in comparison to Jalen Johnson. Like, Desmond Bane's the number 2 dude here. Why can't he just be the guy that beats the shit out of Charlotte today? Right. Still a really good per minute guy, plays a ton of minutes, only 7% owned on a slate like this. He's a bit of a GPP flyer for me. So I'm like, he's 7% owned. I've got 15 and change. So nothing too crazy, but he's the guy that I like to 2X here. After that, I don't really have anything. I do have some interest in Tristan da Silva at 3,900 with the MPE, but it's Tristan da Silva, so it's hard to get like super excited about it.
Yeah, I think he's interesting. He's been out for a bit, but right now not projected for a ton of ownership. We've seen with da Silva, like he can start and play 30 plus minutes. He can start and play sub 20 minutes. So there's like relatively wide range outcomes, assuming he starts. But I do think he's interesting at low ownership right now. With Goga Batadze out, still probably not going to do much for me. I think you'll see some small ball, probably a little bit of Jonathan Isaac at the 5, but don't think I'm going to pull the trigger on that. You mentioned Bane. Like I think he's a pretty good tournament play right now at 7%. Right now, about a third of the ownership of Paolo. His usage, 28% usage rate with those two guys off the court, that being Suggs and Franz. So he has a really nice role as well. Anthony Black, the price point is up to the point where like that feels priced right. Not saying you can't play him at 5% ownership, but I think there's probably better point per dollar plays on this slate. But another thing with Orlando, they've been running a pretty tight rotation. So they've really been running their main guys a lot recently. So that is good to see for the likes of guys like Paolo, Wendell Carter, Bane, Anthony Black.
I don't have much else to say here. So Jeff Williams has a super chat here, and he said, rank Johnson, Mamu, and Portis points per dollar on DraftKings. That will be very easy to do. I assume that's Jalen Johnson. So that would be Portis by a mile, and then Jalen Johnson, then Mamu. All 3 good point per dollar plays. Jalen Johnson and Mamu relatively close to each other. Bobby Portis is pretty far away from both of those dudes. Yep. And then Jacob said, thoughts on Mark Williams in a GPP. When we get to Phoenix, we'll be breaking down Mark Williams, but he is about 20% owned right now. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to Charlotte or Orlando? Any random Charlotte takes for you?
No, I think it's pretty tough to get to anyone else on Charlotte. They're relatively healthy now outside of the bigs. So, yeah, would I be surprised if one of like LaMelo, Miller, Bridges, or Con Kneppel have a really good game? No, but they're tough to make the argument for on this slate.
On the FanDuel side for that game, since we haven't touched on it just yet, let's just filter down to Orlando and Charlotte, and we see basically the same situation, save for Diabate a little bit less owned. He's 5,400, so more expensive. He's center only. There's only one center spot, so he's only 11% owned at FanDuel. Everybody else is sort of equally unowned. Banchero, just 6 on FanDuel. So this game is way less interesting on the FanDuel side than it is on the DraftKings side. 2 down, couple more to go. Game number 3, Toronto and Washington. I seriously feel like the Wizards play 160 games each year. They're just permanently on every slate I talk about. I can't wrap my head around it. I don't know how they have so many games and still never win. Toronto injury report wise, Colin Murray-Boyle's questionable last I saw. Scotty Barnes also questionable. Technically, AJ Lawson is questionable, which probably has something to do with the other 2 Q tags, but who knows? Justin Champagnie, questionable for the Wizards. No Corey Kispert. He's hurt once again. No Jakob Poeltl, RJ Barrett for the Toronto side. 40% ownership on the other hand to Quickly. 30 to Brandon Ingram. Micah Potter is active today for the Pacers. Mamu, 20% owned, which I find interesting. Scotty Barnes is at 15. Obviously, we need a little bit of news there. And then Jamal Shed is at 10. All of the ownership is coming to Toronto. Keyshawn George at 6%, the highest mark from Washington. How are you feeling about this Toronto stuff, or are you just sort of playing it by ear right now?
Yeah, so the good thing is this is an early game, so we will get this news. Both CMB and Barnes questionable with an illness. Barnes was added late for an illness, so I kind of slightly lean that he's out. But like I said, this is an early game. We will get this news. Assuming everyone is in, looking at the ownership right now, it is Emmanuel Quickly, who's projected for about 40% ownership, and he's definitely underpriced, 6,400. Great matchup as well. Obviously, still no RJ Barrett. The ball handling role has been really nice for Emmanuel Quickly, leading the team in potential assists. And probably going to be in that low to mid 30s minute range, assuming the game does stay competitive. So pretty clearly underpriced. I think one of the better point per dollar plays in the mid range. Brandon Ingram leading the team in usage with Barrett off the court, 7,500, reasonable price point for him, getting about 30% ownership. And then I'm pretty high in Sandro Mamuklashvili, sub 20% ownership right now. So in their most recent game, he played 16 first half minutes, and then that game was a blowout. Didn't play a ton in the fourth, but I think you could very easily see like low to mid 30s minutes for Sandro. Obviously you don't project him for that, but we have seen him in starts play mid 30s minutes, and it's nice he's got the power forward eligibility too, because there's high opportunity cost at the center position today. So I like Mamu a good amount. If CMB gets rolled out, I would be even more confident in his minutes, because then they don't really have another big. I mean, you probably see a little bit of Mobo in that situation, but so he looks pretty good. Scotty Barnes at 8,500 right now, only projected about 15% ownership. As I said, I think I lean slightly that he sits, but we will get that news. If he plays, I think he's a pretty good contrarian spend up with, guys like Jalen Johnson and Paolo kind of pulling away from ownership at the top. He would be an interesting pivot. Not exactly the same price range, but I think, would be a viable way to get different there. The rest of the team, probably not going to get to the value plays like CMB, Agbachi. Jamal Shed, I think, is fine. He'll probably play around 20 minutes. I don't have a ton to add there. Project about 10% ownership. But where things get interesting is if one or both of these guys sit, because with Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett both off the court, then you're really condensing things. Like, it's just going to be a ton of Brandon Ingram and Emmanuel Quickly. Like, Ingram's got a 35% usage rate with those two off the court. Emmanuel Quickly, 28% usage rate and 33% assist percentage. So you would see those two probably become two of the most popular plays of the slate. And then we'd have to consider some of the value plays. Like, you would probably see like one of Walter or Battle get a start in that scenario. So Toronto already looks good, but they could look a lot better if Barnes or CMB get rolled out.
Yeah, Agbaji probably soaks up enough minutes at that point to become like a guy you click on instead of a guy that you are pretty happy to ignore. I'm a little over the field on Jamal Shed right now at that 4K number, but that's all subject to change if this breaks differently. I mean, one, he's just going to look like, if Scotty Barnes gets ruled out, Jamal Shed is going to look, he's already 11% owned. That number is going to go up if you give him another minute or two in that case. And he typically is out there for a decent chunk, closes from time to time now too. So I'll have my eye on him for sure. Obviously, the injuries will impact these guys. I'm right around the field on Mamu, on Ingram, on Quickly. I think those guys look great. Does the Scotty Barnes news impact anything to you from Washington? Because for some reason, I just keep picturing Scotty Barnes getting ruled out and then CJ McCollum having like 45 real points.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would feel a little bit better about the Washington pieces in the opposite side, but I don't think I would really do much for me.
I don't have any of it. So one random share of Keyshawn George, one random share of CJ McCollum. If I'm going to have two random shares of people from Washington, those are pretty high on the list, but I don't have much. We do need that Toronto news, though. That will be very important.
Yeah, the Washington side, I think right now it's just tough. They're close to fully healthy. There's basically no ownership coming to this team. I mean, the minutes are kind of the issue for Alex Sarr, right? We really haven't seen him play 30-plus minutes yet. He's hovering in the mid-20s. And a lot of these guys are priced up from when they were shorthanded. And now, you got Middleton back. You got Koulibaly back. They just have more bodies in this rotation. So, I think it's pretty tough to make the argument for anyone in Washington. I think if I had to play someone, it probably would be $6,400 Keyshawn George. But that's not super confident either.
To the Boston Celtics and Indiana Pacers we go. This might be the worst game on the slate. There is no love going anywhere here. 9.97% ownership to Andrew Nembhard. No one got to 10 for real without rounding. Everybody else below that, Jaylen Brown, 5, Peyton Pritchard, 5, Ethan Thompson, 5. This total's like 220 or something equally pathetic. 222, my apologies. Pacers 8.5-point dogs here. They just excised James Wiseman and Garrison Matthews from their team. Welcome in Micah Potter. That just got announced. Sure. Do you want to do anything with this game? Because it's certainly going to be contrarian to do so.
Yeah, there's not much ownership coming to this game, and I basically agree with it. For the Boston side, couple notes here. You have seen Luka Garza in the rotation last couple games, 26 and 24 minutes. So before that, they were running Josh Minott as the backup 5. They're not doing that right now. And that has kind of capped the upside on Kada's minutes, only 22 and 23 minutes over the last couple of games. So not much interest there. The guards, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, still priced up a little bit from when Jaylen Brown missed that one game. So they're tough to make the argument for. Not that you can't play them, but they don't really stand out. Jaylen Brown himself, 9,600, I think is playable as a contrarian spend up. He's getting very low ownership right now. He's leading the team with about a 37% usage rate, and ball handling role is still solid for him as well, 23% assist percentage. So you can get to Jaylen Brown in tournaments right now, projected about 5% ownership. On the Pacers side, I think it's tough to make the argument for anyone. Andrew Nembhard right now projected about 10% ownership. Reasonable price point for him. Production's been a little bit up and down. You do have TJ McConnell back, so the minutes probably not going to be as high. Like you saw 36 minutes from him a couple games ago. That was the game that McConnell missed. You're probably going to be in the low 30s minute range for him, assuming the game does stay competitive. And you mentioned they released Wiseman. There's no Isaiah Jackson. Maybe Jay Huff plays a little bit more. He's 5K right now, projected for basically no ownership, 2%. So I think he's at least interesting in a large field tournament. The only other big really is Bradley, and then they recently signed Micah Potter, as you mentioned. So I do think Huff at 5K at no ownership is at least worth a mention in large field tournaments. But the rest of the roster, the price point on Siakam and Mathurin feel right. I think McConnell is always playable in tournaments. Right now, he's projected for low ownership. He has played 18, 18, and 21 minutes over the last 3 games. There was a stretch of time where he was only averaging about 15 minutes per game. We know he's a good point per minute player. So another guy that I think you could take a shot on. But yeah, Ethan Thompson, I'm probably not going to go there, even though he's most likely going to start. Just awful point per minute. Overall, definitely a pretty unappealing game.
Yeah, it is equally unappealing on the FanDuel side. 6,600 for Peyton Pritchard. He's 8% owned. That's the high mark for the game. I mean, it's tough when a game has a point total that's 30 points lower than another game at the exact same time. You really need guys out in those situations to be able to create any value, and that's just not what's happening here. Don't have a ton of recommendations. Obviously, people can play well, but these guys are ownership pivots. This is a way to go a slightly different direction. I do recommend you sign up at Stochastic using the promo code GIFT. This is the Christmas promo for you guys. Any DFS package. Doesn't matter which one you choose, weekly, monthly, single sport, all access. The promo code is GIFT. The link is in the description. Any one of those packages, 20% off. I believe that ends today. Don't quote me on that. Worst case scenario, it's Sunday, but keep your eyes peeled because it will go away soon. So if you're looking to get in for today, get in for NFL football over the weekend, get in for all of the NBA, obviously not going anywhere. Hockey exists. We've got projections and ownership. MMA is on the back burner a bit right now, but we have that typically. Golf, it's a great time. Great time to get in. 20% off, promo code GIFT. We keep it moving. I don't know what the next game is. 7:30 start. Oh, great. Another gem. Bulls. Philadelphia 76ers. Bulls 1.5 point dogs at home. 241 total. We did have a ton of news in this game. We got most of it. Edgecombe in. Grimes in. Barlow in. Still waiting on a Q tag for Joel Embiid. We also have a Q tag on Patrick Williams on the Chicago side. That isn't all that important. Interesting game. 5.8% owned. Kobe White is the most owned guy here. This is a decent total. Nobody really has like a stupid or preposterous price tag. This one feels different to me than the Boston Indiana game. I'm surprised there's so little ownership here.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. So I'll start with the Philadelphia side. Right now, the guy projected for the most ownership is Joel Embiid at 5%. So on the year, 1.42 fantasy point per minute player. He did play 31 minutes in their most recent game. And I love targeting bigs against the Chicago front court. So yeah, if I was MMEing, I would definitely want to get overweight to Embiid. I think he's a pretty good contrarian to spend up. And I think Tyrese Maxey at 3% is pretty interesting too. 9,800. Still going to play huge minutes. Like, yeah, the usage isn't going to be as high playing alongside Embiid and Paul George, but still played 39 minutes last game. And that's just kind of what we've seen all year with Maxey. Paul George, I think it's a little bit tougher to make the argument for at 7K. He's usually someone I like to get to when they're a bit more shorthanded. So I think I'd rather take a shot on Embiid or Maxey. Edgecombe, I think is pretty tough to make the argument for as well. 6,600, pretty similar to Paul George. Of like when they're a little bit more shorthanded, that's someone I would like to target. So yeah, just more of a price point thing there. And there's not much else. Obviously, we still are waiting on the status of Joel Embiid. He's the one guy. Everyone else got upgraded to probable, but Embiid is still questionable. So if Embiid does not play, then we're going to get Andre Drummond opening up as a pretty good option here at 5,800. Most likely you would see him in a Dem bonus splitting the center minutes, but the upside on Drummond is definitely there at that price point. So he would be a pretty interesting center play there if Embiid gets ruled out. So I think Philly's a pretty interesting tournament team. Again, we got to keep an eye on the Embiid news. Could open up a little bit. Obviously, I would like Maxey and Paul George more if he sits. And then again, it would open up the two centers there, but more so Andre Drummond at 5,800.
Anything on the Bulls side right now? I've got some stray shares of Josh Giddey, as I typically do. A little bit of Kobe White, a little bit of Vooch, but no real big stands here. I do kind of want to have a little bit more of this game, especially because it's a 7:30 lock. So like I can get off of it if I need to. But the Embiid news will change it. If he happens to be out, that'll open some stuff up here in a different way. We'll change up some rates for Paul George. We'll change up some rates for Tyrese Maxey. We'll change up some minutes, obviously, for guys like Drummond and Dembona. But do you have anything on the Chicago side? They seem more generic.
Yeah. I think the tricky part about Chicago is just this team is basically fully healthy. They've run an 11-man rotation the last couple of games, so really spreading out the minutes. Maybe they will eventually condense it to 9 or 10, but right now they seem pretty content on playing 11 guys. Ownership, nothing crazy here. Again, highest projected owned guy is White and Vooch around 5%. Kobe White just seems to be around 30 minutes every single day, so he's just like fine tournament play, fine way to get different, but not a ton to add there. Vucevic, 6,700. The price point has dropped on him. The minutes have been relatively stable around 30. So I think he's interesting. I would like him more if Embiid sits. Zach Collins at 3,400 minutes, 19, 16, 18 over the last three games. Pretty good point per minute player. If Embiid plays, there's obviously some foul risk for Vooch. So I do think Zach Collins is a little bit interesting in a large field tournament. But Giddey, 3% owned is a fine contrarian spend up. Again, really the issue is just the minutes for him. You're most likely going to be in the low 30s. And not saying he can't have a good game in low 30s minutes, but it's a little bit less likely. Probably not going to get any of the wings like Buzelis or Okoro. But yeah, really just the downside here is just the deep rotation Chicago has been running.
Keep your eyes peeled on that Joel Embiid news. You may get that at a good time during Live Before Lock, which is coming up next at the top of the hour. So you don't have to go anywhere. Be here till 7 until we get to lock. You'll be completely handled. That news could also come at 7:01. So be ready for it. On the FanDuel side, it's the same story. There's no ownership coming into this game. It's Kobe White at 7.5%, Edgecombe at 5%. Everybody else is below that number. Again, keep your eyes peeled on the Joel Embiid news for this game. Just very, very different. Bucks, Grizzlies. This should be a journey. There are some weird things going on in Milwaukee and in Memphis. So let's start on the Milwaukee side. No Gary Trent for today. Otherwise, it's what we've been used to for Milwaukee, which is no Giannis Antetokounmpo. For the Memphis side, Ja Morant is questionable. Cedric Howard is questionable. They're still without Edie, Vince Williams, Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen, John Conchar, Brandon Clark. We've been getting more of Bobby Portis lately, and that is resulting in Bobby Portis being 5,900. Power forward center eligible, 45% owned. We've also got 20% ownership coming into Kyle Kuzma, about 10 for Miles Turner, and still 10 for a 9K Kevin Porter Jr. Let's just start with the Portis piece since he's one of the highest owned guys on the slate. And I completely agree with it. I have a ton of him. He's one of my most exposed players, if not most exposed, last I looked. Do you want to go with the Portis experience? It always scares me, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I just want to mention this. So I did see at Shoot Around that Ryan Rollins had a starter's jersey on. Now, that's not obviously a guarantee that he's going to start, but I just at least wanted to mention that because if he could start, like we saw, obviously Rollins started a good chunk of the games this year, and he played really well last game. And so if he does start, who moves to the bench? Probably Portis. It could be Kuzma, I guess, but I think that's at least something just to keep an eye on. But if Bobby Portis starts, he is the issue with him all year has just really been the minutes. But over the last 3 games, the minutes have been very secure. He's a 1.03 fantasy point per minute player. He's played 39 minutes in 2 of the last 3 games, and he played 32 minutes last game. So, Memphis is not the same defensive team with Zach Edey off the court. They're actually a team that I like to target in the front court. So, if Portis starts, fire him up right now, projected to be very popular, but I agree. So, I think he stands out as one of the better point per hour plays here in the mid-range. Kyle Kuzma around 20% at 5,400. I do think is interesting. I don't know if he'll be that high owned. We'll see, but minutes have been solid for him. 31, 28, 32, 35 minutes. Roll's been decent. So another guy that you can definitely look to there in the mid-range. I think I'm a little bit more interested in Kevin Porter Jr. than the 9% projected ownership. I mean, the role's been insane for him. Leading the team in usage, leading the team in potential assists. With Giannis off the court this year, 1.3 fantasy point per minute. So I like KPJ as contrarian spend up. And then Ryan Rollins is the other guy to mention. He's 6,900. If he comes off the bench, probably can't get to him. But if he does move in the starting lineup, I think he's interesting. And we may or may not get that news. I don't know when we would get that Bucks news. It might be after a lot of these games start. Yeah. So he could be an interesting tournament play there if he does start.
Scotty Barnes in. Colin Murray-Boyles in.
Okay.
So there we go. I'm 2xing Miles Turner right now, which surprised me a bit. Minutes have crept up a little bit over these last few, which I guess is interesting. I definitely like it a little bit more with no Zach Edey out there. He's 11% owned. I've got about 20 right now, a little over 20. Miles over on Bobby Portis. He's in basically everything. So I'm quite confident that he's going to get the old Polsky from that starting lineup and just screw it all up. But Kuzma right around the field. I'm right around the field on Kevin Porter Jr. I don't have a single share of a Memphis Grizzly right now. Now that will change if both of those dudes end up out. If we end up with no Ja Morant and no Cedric Howard, then that will change. There will be something here for Memphis. But as it stands right now, the highest owned guy on Memphis is Santi Aldama at 2.5%.
Yeah, I think this team is pretty tough to get to, as you mentioned. Now, we do have some injury news, right, with Ja and Cedric Howard, but Ja Morant was at shoot-arounds, so right now I do lean that he plays. If both these guys get ruled out, that's where things would change, and that's where Memphis would look a lot more interesting, because then I think Cam Spencer at 6,600 would be a pretty good play in the mid-range. He's been their primary ball handler. Last 3 games, 11, 8, and 13 assists, so if Ja is out specifically, I think Spencer's in play, but if both are out, he's going to look like a pretty good option there. And then the front court, like Jaren and Aldama, are kind of priced up. So assuming everyone's in, it's tough to make the argument for them. They like to switch up the starting lineup with like Aldama or Landell. So that's kind of tough to predict too. Gigi Jackson did get the start last time out for Cedric Howard, had a really good game in 30 minutes. So keep an eye on that. Could be a viable value there if he starts again. But assuming everyone's in, I just expect Memphis to run a pretty deep rotation. A lot of these guys are priced up from when some of these guys have been out. So
keep your eyes on the news. Pay attention to Live Before Lock, which will be coming up after this. Let's hop over to the FanDuel side for this game. Milwaukee, Memphis, comparable ownership coming into Bobby Portis. He is 40% owned on FanDuel, 6,100. Kuzma, comparable ownership, 20% owned. Kevin Porter Jr., more owned on FanDuel. Again, not surprising because of the way that positions work there. He's about 15% owned. We actually have him with some positive leverage as well. Miles Turner is at 10, and then similar scenario going on for Memphis. There's just simply not a lot of ownership coming into these guys. 5% to Cedric Howard is the most of anybody on FanDuel for the Grizzlies. We have one game remaining. So for the, 1,100 of you or so that are here, hit the like button. It's the Christmas season. Hit that thumbs up. Let's run that number up a little bit higher before the Live Before Lock guys get here. And then let's get to the final game. We have plenty to talk about. Get your questions ready if you need them. We have a super chat queued up and ready to go for this next game. Phoenix Suns. Yay. New Orleans Pelicans. Double yay. They've got some flat ownership here. Mark Williams is around 20. That's our super chat. Colin Gillespie's 15 to 20. So is Royce O'Neal. So is Jordan Goodwin. Devin Booker sitting at 10. Highest owned guy from the Pels is 5% owned right now. It's just a mess in terms of exposure in this game. Jordan Goodwin is available. He was on the injury report earlier. Jordan Poole is probable for today. No Herb Jones. I guess we start on the Phoenix side for this one, and we had the super chat, so let's pull it up. Jacob asked, thoughts on Mark Williams? His minutes have been so weird over the, entire season, I guess. If you get the 32-minute game out of Mark Williams, I think it looks fantastic against the Pelicans. I never know how much he's going to truly be out there. Right now, he's pulling some ownership. I'm indifferent.
Yeah, so I kind of wish he wasn't pulling as much ownership, but I do like him a good amount here still. So I was looking back through it. So last game against the Lakers was a blowout. Now he played 8 minutes in the first quarter and 6.5 there in the second quarter. So was pacing for about 30 minutes. Obviously the game blew out, never played in the fourth. The other 2 games where he got limited recently were both against Golden State. And I think that kind of makes sense. Golden State plays a little bit more small ball. So Phoenix was playing more small. But Their most recent game that stayed competitive, you saw 29 minutes from Mark Williams. He is a 1.14 fantasy point per minute player on the year. And this is how I love targeting bigs against the Pelicans. So I think Mark Williams is a really good center play here. Obviously, again, we have some good center plays on this slate, but I think you could definitely see close to 30 minutes from Mark Williams. And yeah, like the ownership, he's getting some ownership, but still, I think the upside is clearly there for Mark Williams. Obviously, minutes a little bit more in question, but I'm a little bit more confident that he can stay on the court here against the Pelicans. So yeah, I think he's a really good play at 5,400.
For anyone that could possibly care about this, Patrick Williams is in today for the Chicago Bulls. Just getting that out of there. So what do you want to do with the rest of this group of Suns dudes? Justin Champagnie also listed as available to play today. Gillespie, Royce O'Neal, Jordan Goodwin, Booker, Dylan Brooks, all getting a little bit of love in some way. Does anybody else stand out to you for Phoenix? Because I kind of find all of these guys to be like pretty similar relative to their salary.
Yeah, I think they're pretty similar as well. Gillespie, 6,400 minutes, been pretty solid for him. 34 and 35 over the last couple competitive games. I think he's a pretty good option there. The mid-range ownership, again, right now around 20%. Royce O'Neal, reasonable value at 4,800. Should be probably around 30 minutes in a competitive game. Devin Booker, I think you can mix in as contrarian spend up right now, only projected about 10% ownership, but I think he has a pretty high ceiling here. On the year, Devin Booker, 1.13 fantasy point per minute usage. He's sitting at about 30% usage rate on the year. So Pelicans matchup, not bad. So yeah, another reasonable contrarian spend up there. Dylan Brooks at a little less than 10% ownership, I think is a fine last guy in, 6,300. But yeah, not much else. Goodwin, I don't think I mentioned him, 4,400. I think he's a fine value. So a lot of these guys are just like secondary plays for me outside of Mark Williams, but no issue with really any of the main rotation players.
Any interest in anything in what's going on in New Orleans right now? Because it seems a little crowded with awful.
Yeah,
although they've been winning, I guess. So I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah, they've been running a pretty deep rotation. You do have Jordan Poole expected to play too, so that hurts the upside for guys like Fears and Alvarado. Right now, basically no one getting ownership. Jeremiah Fears are around 5%, but yeah, it's tough for me to feel confident in his minutes with Poole available, with Alvarado available. Zion's minutes just really haven't been there, 7,200. They've been pretty cautious with him, 23, 25, and 21 minutes. So, like, yeah, I think we just need to see a little bit more from Zion before I can feel confident going there. And yeah, the wings like Murphy and Bay both feel priced right. Derek Queen at 7K minutes have not been amazing on him, so probably pass there. You did see Bryce McGowan's get the start last game, but yeah, can't get to him. So overall, I think the Pelicans pretty unappealing.
Yeah, pretty bleak. I thought we were going to get some of that injury news and that was going to open things up, and that just doesn't appear to be the case so far. We don't really have all that much left as actionable items on this main slate, I don't believe. Embiid and
we got the Toronto. So Memphis. So the Memphis stuff. So Ja and Coward.
Yeah, the Memphis guys. Yeah. Memphis and Embiid is all we have left. And then Ron Holland for Detroit. And that's it. Everything else is already handled, I guess. Gross. All right, let me look at this one on the FanDuel side for Pels and Phoenix. You guys can start dropping some questions in if you're interested. Basically the exact same story on FanDuel as it is on DraftKings. Like 15% ownership to Colin Gillespie, Jordan Goodwin, Mark Williams, Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal, and Devin Booker. No ownership whatsoever to anybody else. So that's where we stand for that one. If I pull up Detroit and Utah, we can hit some high-level thoughts here. Again, Ron Holland is questionable for this one. On the FanDuel side, Asar Thompson is 15% owned. Cade is 15% owned. No one else is above 6, which is Jalen Duren. This strikes me as a relatively innocuous game that isn't all that interesting on FanDuel. Do you have any hot takes about Detroit and or Utah?
Yeah, so for Detroit, just keep an eye on the Ron Holland news. You did finally see Asar Thompson get ceiling minutes. So for
Yeah.
most of the season, this guy's been like around 25 minutes, but he played 36 minutes last game, so that was good to see. And yeah, so obviously you don't project him for that, but at least we know that Asar Thompson can play over 30 minutes. So if there's no Ron Holland, I think you feel a little bit better about his minutes. Don't have a ton else to add. I mean, I like the spot a lot for Duren and Cade. So they're obviously playable, but Detroit still runs a pretty deep rotation here. So probably not going to get to anyone else.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say here. The ownership is kind of showing the scene, so to speak. Final game, Clippers and Blazers. We do have a decent chunk of ownership coming in here. Kawhi Leonard, 9,200 on FanDuel, small forward, power forward eligible, 35% owned right now. Shaden Sharp is north of 20% owned. James Harden is around 15. Chris Dunn, Brooke Lopez, Brooke and Dunn, they're both around 10, as is Denny Avdia. But this is the Kawhi Leonard show for tonight on FanDuel. How are you feeling about Kawhi? You going to go buy some carbon credits or something, or are you just going to roster him on FanDuel?
Yeah, so it is, again, I haven't really looked into the FanDuel slate too much, but like it does feel like he's going a little bit overowned at 35%. I mean, the role for Kawhi is obviously pretty good here. Minutes have been very solid for him as well, but I don't know. I feel like that ownership feels a little bit high. What do you think about Kawhi on FanDuel?
Yeah, I think the negative 6.6% leverage stands out. Like, clearly a good play, great positional eligibility. Maybe a little bit more interesting just because of the game time on FanDuel. Like, realistically, you're putting him in here. This is the last game. It creates a lot of flexibility for you through it. So I don't mind like the idea of artificially having more of him heading into a lock scenario and trying to use that to my advantage later. But yeah, it feels a hair high for what's basically a normal situation for the Clippers. I mean, obviously, Zoo is not in, and we need to see what that's going to look like long term. But I mean, Brooke Lopez is going to do a mild approximation of it. He's just going to do more pop than roll. Maybe that creates more space for Kawhi and for James Harden, and this becomes like a more efficient offense when you've got Kawhi spreading the floor, James Harden spreading the floor, John Collins spreading the floor. Maybe that changes their offensive ceiling here against the Portland team that I thought was going to be a much better defense than they had been. Yeah, the Drew Holiday experience probably not helping with him not around right now. Shaden Sharp, on the other hand, a bit of an offensive experience. Certainly a much worse defensive team in the LA Clippers right now. Any interest in the Sharp piece at 20-something% owned? Because he's got the positive leverage.
Yeah, I think Sharp is a solid option in the mid-range. The only concern really is you did see last game, Caleb Love had a really good game, and they actually closed with so he closed. He played 32 minutes. The minutes were kind of limited on Shaden Sharp. He only played 27 minutes. I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but just wanted to mention that. But yeah, like his role's been pretty solid. Potential assists have been decent, kind of behind Denny there. So 20% ownership, I think, is reasonable. And then looking at the rest of this team, I mean, they're going to run a pretty tight rotation. Obviously, you can always get to Denny, project about 10% ownership. The ceiling's pretty high there. The minutes on Engleman have been pretty solid. I think this is a game that he can stay on the court against the likes of Brooke Lopez, John Collins, and the other center that I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. So Engleman, I think, is interesting there for FanDuel. Kamara at 5,800 should play all the minutes that he can handle too, with this team being relatively shorthanded. So, pretty interesting team here just because they are missing a lot of pieces. And then I wanted to mention someone on the Clipper side too, John Collins. So he has a much different role with Zubats off the court. They run a lot more pick and roll with John Collins, and his rebounding numbers go way up too. So he had 20 rebound chances 2 games ago. He had 14 rebound chances last game in a blowout. Now, the only thing is you didn't really see a ton of him at the 5 last game, but I definitely think you could see some John Collins at the 5 tonight. So he is someone I think is a pretty interesting tournament play because he is just a different player with Zubats off the court.
You don't want to say Yannick Conan Niederhauser?
I don't want to try to say that, no.
Now that one's easy, man. That one's not so bad. Yannick Conan Niederhauser. That's not too bad.
I'll have to practice that like 20 times before I'm confident. So
we've got way worse. Sandro Mamukulishvili doesn't roll off the tongue all that easily either. But that one's just easy because of MMA. We got a hell of a slate here. Before you and I get out of here, because we got a couple minutes before we turn it over to Live Before Lock, I'm going to ask you the question I always ask you. Or I'm going to tell you what to do. Tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me over on Tails. So currently offering daily fantasy sports content as well as player props. So that's sportsbook and pick'em stuff. Track all my plays over on Pick'It if you're curious. So yeah, post some free content as well. So
boom. Check it all out. Follow along. I'm doing it. Why wouldn't you guys want to do it? Sometimes you just want good information. This is the easiest way to find it on Tails, and you can download Tails by clicking the link in the description of this video. Doesn't get any easier than that. If you're looking for bets, pick'em cards, DFS coverage, we're just making it very easy for you to find it, and it's totally free. Costs you nothing. So just download the app. If you find somebody like DK who's posting constant winners, tracking all of their results, you're like, oh, damn, like I've been following him. He's winning. He's posting winning plays. You can subscribe to him directly. It's very simple. You click it directly, give him a couple shekels of cash to pay it forward, and print some money with him. That's the easiest thing to do. I got a prize picks card up there from earlier today. Fired off some DFS stuff as well, so you guys can check that out. I thought we were going to have like a really tumultuous slate, and it is, well, we're 3 minutes away from Live Before Lock. Typically, they get some nonsense in this little 6 o'clock window. You never know where it's going to break. Maybe it's just that Eric is bad luck. We've got Chris Spags and Greg going for this one. So maybe Spags isn't the same bad luck as Eric in bringing news at 6 p.m. that's going to flip the slate. Because we don't really have it right now. Like Joel Embiid will impact it marginally. The two Memphis guys will matter a bit, but I'll still never trust Memphis to like play the guys that I expect them to play in any given game. Every year we do this with the Grizzlies. It doesn't matter who the coach is, doesn't matter who's on the team. They just do the same thing, which is get hurt over and over again. I'm going to ask you the question that I typically ask right about now. We're on DraftKings. We've got 50% ownership to Ware, to Jaquez. We're in the 40s for Portis, Powell, Diabate, and Quickly. That's 6 names at the top. Which one of those 6 is most likely to kill us today?
Oof. I'm going to say, right now, I'll say Norm Powell. I just think he's going a little bit over-owned. But like I said, keep an eye on the Milwaukee starting lineup too. I think there's a chance they change it. And if Portis doesn't start, then not saying he's out of play, but he would definitely be over-owned. So my answer is Powell, but yeah, keep an eye on the Milwaukee starting lineup.
There it is, everybody. I actually agree with the Norm Powell piece. He was the guy that I was probably least likely to be getting to in that group. He's a guy that scares me all the time because you can kind of tell if he's going to be worth it after the first quarter. He's so scoring dependent that like if he's not off to a hot start, you kind of just feel like he's not going to get. Now he is live to score 20 real points in a quarter and make up for that at some point in time. But it's not like you're going to see Norm Powell with like 8 boards and 7 assists today. That's not the typical game you're getting out of Norm. He needs to hang 30 plus real points on Atlanta. And in a game with a 250 total, he can do that. That's why he's getting that ownership. But I agree. That's the guy that I would probably be a bit lighter on right now. But with that said, we are close enough to 6 p.m. that it's Greg Ehrenberg, Chris Spags time. NBA Live Before Lock is now. What's up, boys? Ho, 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 and all that jazz.
Josh, DK, hope you guys had a good holiday. New Year's coming up, and fun NBA slate that we had yesterday also, where last game ended up being important, and luckily, Josh, we just happened to be on it because that was how we were kind of reserving lineup spots. The news didn't really break how we wanted to yesterday, but I think we kind of got lucky that we were just like, hey, let's load up on the late game. We could do some late swaps if any kind of news breaks over the course of the day. Tari Eason ended up starting. It was nice to get overweight to him, but it was even better that the game that we were just on, because it was the last game, went to overtime. So that was a nice Christmas present.
It helped a lot. That Nikola Jokic guy, oddly good at basketball.
Yeah,
y'all have fun.
Good old 100 fantasy point game. The the 4th or 5th one of the last couple of years or something like that. I know Jokic just had it. Yeah, Luka has. Embiid has a couple of them. I'm trying to remember if anybody else
has one.
Could
be.
AD
has one.
Yeah, he could.
That might be too far back at this point, but I'm pretty sure he had one.
So yeah, those were fun games yesterday. Certainly more fun than the terrible, shitty football games that are out there. And now it is time to brave the weather. So Josh, DK, happy holidays. We enjoy your service. Get out of here, guys. So time for the real program here. Do us a favor, guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Spags, you supposed to get any snow by you by chance?
Yeah, it's actually starting to sleet a little bit out there, so we'll see how it looks. I'm supposed to be waking up with Luca bright and early, taking him to breakfast to get pancakes tomorrow, so I'm really hoping that does not include shoveling while the wife sleeps comfortably after being quite the bitch tonight.
Yeah, it is. I tweeted this. I don't think a lot of people saw it, but I don't really pay much attention to the weather, the news. I just go about my life, which is problematic at times in when there's crisis weather situation, because I just don't find out until I look outside, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I should have been stocking up on food. I don't have anything or whatever. Here's what saved me today. I got a text message from my dispensary saying they were closing early due to the incoming weather storm, and they were offering promos. And that was how I found out it was supposed to snow today. And then I went and checked the weather report. I was like, oh my God, it's supposed to snow 9 inches. So I went to the grocery store, got myself a bunch of food and whatnot for the weekend. But if it was not for that text, I would have had no clue that it was supposed to snow today.
It's funny how that works, because you're somebody I feel like you're one of the most online people I know, because you're always putting out witty tweets and stuff, replying to stuff, giving NBA suggestions to fix tanking, things like that. And you don't see weather, you don't see things that are outside your own door, but you see all this nonsense that goes on online. I'm the same way, where it's the only way I know my weather is because I have an Apple Watch. I look down and go oh my God, it's 30 degrees, kill me. And that's sort of how that process goes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the way that social works now. They listen to everything. They're looking at our Google searches, they're listening to our conversations, and then it just feeds you the content of the things you talk about. And unless if my parents weren't in Florida and they were staying at my house right now, because my dad constantly talks about the weather, maybe I would get more weather stuff fed to my timeline, but not the case. So I just had no clue until I got that text message, went loaded up on food for the weekend, and hopefully, I'm able to have the power hold up throughout the night. Because the other thought that I had, which I didn't realize until 15 minutes before it started, but obviously you had the outage. Was that last Friday? I think, if I remember correctly, where your power went out. And now I'm sitting here worst case scenario for me is the slate starts, somebody gets ruled out, and I can't late swap any of my lineups because the power isn't on or whatever. So hopefully, at least because the DraftKings slate, that's all locked at 8 p.m. Eastern time. The FanDuel one's going later. I'm playing on DraftKings tonight, so hopefully I'm able to have my weather hold up and keep the power on throughout the night. But anyway, guys, like I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also want to let you know that we do have our holiday promo going on. You guys could sign up for any package that I have here at Stochastic and get yourself 20% off with the promo code GIFT. Just sign up using the link that we have down below in the YouTube description box. And any package, whether you want a core, a max, an all access, a single sport, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, sign up with that promo code GIFT, and that is going to get you 20% off. So take advantage of that offer, guys. It is going to be expiring on Sunday, so it is a holiday offer. Spags, I want to know from you, before we start to get into the actual ins and outs of the slate and answer all the questions we get, do you have any general overarching thoughts on this slate the day after the holidays?
Yeah, I'm floored by how consolidated my lineups are. Both with my own data overlaid on a stochastic sim, even without, just regular stochastic data. I feel like it's a very concentrated player pool today in a way that we don't always get, because usually you're trying to get these spike guys, these ceiling guys around your lineup, rotate them through. But Khalil Ware, Diabate, Emmanuel Quickly, who somehow looks fantastic, even though Barnes is going to be in. I was really hoping that Barnes would be out so I could feel good about how much Quickly I'm getting. These guys are coming up in a ton of lineups. That Heat game versus Atlanta coming up everywhere. Obviously, with how high of a total that is, it makes sense. But I really feel like it's one of those nights, Greg, where wouldn't shock me if something completely out of left field won, because everybody's going to be kind of swarming around the same spot. And for NFL this week, it's be the same thing. Like, we're not talking about it today, but like, it's weird that like, it almost feels like we're phoning it in with like the holiday weekend where everybody's like, yeah, no, these guys look good enough. Let's just play them 80%, call it a day.
Yeah, and like you said, not to get too far off track, but Lofty and I did the only strategy show of the week for the Sunday slate, because everything else we did over the course of the week was for the Christmas slate. And there's 3 quarterbacks that are 18% owned this week, which basically never happens. So you got, more than half the field playing 3 quarterbacks for the weekend. Also, something I'm kind of curious to see as we get closer to lock, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the projections and ownership come down on the Toronto guys. So I was really happy with the position I had, Spags, where I did a same game parlay of overs on Manuel Quickley and Brandon Ingram under the assumption that Scotty Barnes was not going to play. Just figured day after the holiday, downgraded to questionable midday due to an illness. More often than not, that's a sign the guy isn't going to end up playing. So what ends up happening is the market started to think like, oh, okay, Scotty Barnes isn't going to play today. Line moved in favor of the Wizards. You also had the prop lines go up for the Raptors guys. And now you got Scotty Barnes ruled in. Now, the betting lines, that is incorporated into part of our projections here. So I do think that we're going to see prop lines come down a little bit because they were starting to get priced as if Barnes was going to be out. So now those lines coming back down with Barnes in, I wouldn't be surprised if that means that some of the Toronto guys come down a little bit. If they don't, I think the forgotten man here actually becomes Scotty Barnes, because if you look at some of the individual exposures we have here, I'll filter on screen by the Toronto Raptors, you will see that we now have, in terms of ownership, 41.5% ownership to Emmanuel Quickley, 30.5% ownership to Brandon Ingram. Once again, inflated prop lines because there was an assumption that Scotty Barnes wasn't going to play today. And then Scotty Barnes is down here at 16% ownership. He's $8,500, so sure, he's more expensive than the other 2 guys, but still a great matchup against the Wizards. I think that Scotty Barnes is a pretty interesting leverage option if we end up finding out that the ownership doesn't change on guys like Quickley and Ingram.
I mean, I'm not sold the ownership's going to change just because of the fact that like they are playing Washington. And I'm surprised that Barnes is playing, like saw the line being 6.5 points favoring Toronto on the road and kind of seemed like a non-Barnes line. Like I think that Quickley and Ingram and Mumuklashvili can cover that collectively without Barrett. But yeah, now we have Barnes in, and I agree with you. Like I only got Barnes at 9%. I might boost him here down the home stretch. Not sure how things are going to look, but I mean, really, he's power forward. He's a direct leverage play on the very chalky Jalen Johnson, who I love and has been great so many times, and I think is still underpriced at 10K. But Barnes against the Wizards, I think he's got similar amounts of upside for sure. So I agree with you. Like he's underowned. I still think Quickley and Ingram are good plays because you have no Barrett, and those guys really do take appreciable increases in their rates without having Barrett out there. And I think Quickley's just too cheap at 6,400 on DraftKings. But yeah, I think there is sort of an ownership assumption here that is going to linger behind of, people thinking Barnes wasn't going to play. And now that he's in, it's probably just worth getting that ownership. Really, anytime a guy seems like they're not going to play, then they do. It's almost worth getting a shot if they have anywhere near a Barnes ceiling, especially.
So some other updates here. We've got the DraftKings slate is 7 games. The FanDuel slate is 9 games. Here is who is currently on the injury report across all of the games for today that's prominent. Joel Embiid is questionable. Ja Morant is questionable. Cedric Coward is questionable. Those are the guys who I consider to be most pertinent. Ron Holland being questionable, that matters a little bit, just not as much as the other 3 guys. If this was still Barnes questionable, I would have very confidently been wrong. I've told you that I didn't think Scotty Barnes was going to play today. So I'm curious, Spags, do you have any strong leans on Joel Embiid, Ja Morant, or Cedric Coward in terms of in or out?
Not particularly. I mean, Embiid, the fact that everybody else got ruled in or upgraded to probable and he didn't, does seem like he might be, more leaning towards the no side. And the knee injury for him, any lingering of that, like it's not like it's illness or anything. It is related to his knee. That's been kind of the same issue. I think not great. I think Embiid's pretty important to me because I do think it makes Maxey playable at that point, and Paul George a little bit more as well. I think that would be kind of compelling to me to go to those guys if Embiid's out. But at this point, I don't really know. I think it's 50-50 for Embiid, and that's really the only one I care about.
I think Embiid is going to be in. I think the 76ers, if you remember, they got fined maybe even multiple times last year for having faulty injury reporting on Joel Embiid. And now I think as a preventative measure, they're just like, he's questionable every day because you never know what might happen with Joel Embiid. So I tend to think he's more likely to play than sit, but like I can't say that 100% confidently because at any point in time when he's listed as questionable, his knee could just feel a little wonky when he's warming up, and then all of a sudden they end up ruling him out as we get closer to the start of the game. But I do think that he's much more likely to play than not. I right now am assuming as I build my lineups that he's going to be in. We have him in our projections. But yeah, one that is certainly worth keeping an eye on. As far as Morant and Coward, I don't have a really good feel or guess for those guys. I'll consider them each to be 50-50.
I think they play. I mean, if one of them plays, I think it kind of ruins the other one's upside a little bit. I mean, Morant, I don't think is going to be playable no matter what, but Coward would look playable if Morant's out. But I personally think Morant's going to play. I assume that based on the reports earlier today.
All right. If you guys are a Stochastic sub and have any questions for Spags and I, hit me up in Discord. I've got that pulled up in front of me on one of my screens. So if anything does cross your mind over the course of the show, just tag me and I'll be reading off those questions. Or if you have a super chat, you can leave that for us as well. But if you guys don't have questions, looks like a little bit less people around with it being the holiday and a Friday night, all totally understandable. Then we could also just talk about the slate as we see fit here, Spags. And like you mentioned, we do have some concentrated ownership. We have 6 players projected for at least 40% ownership. We've got Khalil Ware, we've got Jaime Jaquez, we've got Bobby Portis, we've got Norm Powell, we've got Musa Diabate, and we've got Emmanuel Quickly. Of those 6 guys, are you finding yourself significantly underweight to any of the 6 of them? Because I've got one guy I've got way less than the field looking through my most recent run of Sims here.
There's nobody I'm appreciably under, I think, out of that group. I mean, I'm a little bit low. You said Norm Powell is part of that group, right?
Yeah, so Norman Powell is currently projected for 45% ownership.
Yeah, so I am a little bit lower on Powell. I guess I'm the lowest technically on Portis by actually a decent margin. I'm only getting 19% Portis. Fields at 48. He's been better lately. He's, getting the starting run definitely helps him out a little bit. But Portis to me is not projecting as well. I mean, one of the things that, my projections do, which I think makes me a little bit more unique, and I have to have, Stochastic as a counterbalance to it. But I weight the season's results a little bit more. So I kind of get less of the guys that are not, running hot this year, get a little bit more of the guys that are. Portis has just not been the same guy this year with Giannis off the court. The rates kind of support that as well. Obviously, if he's starting at 5,900, I know there's a ceiling there. Gets Memphis kind of, feels, obviously, as much as that matters, it's not a data point, but it feels like a Bobby Portis kind of rugged matchup. But the field's going to be at 50% or so ownership. I think that's the one that I could really go low on. I am low on Jaquez and Powell, but not by nearly as much. For me, Portis is like actively a pretty big fade today.
Yeah, Powell is the one for me. Our boom bust data bears this out as well. So I think that's why I end up coming in as underweight to him as I do in the Sims, where we've got him projected for 45% ownership. However, we've got the optimal rate on Norman Powell only being 35%. So you've got negative 9% leverage, which I believe, let's sort here, is going to make him probably the most negatively leveraged player on the slate. So here, let's say negative. Yeah, it is negative 9% for Norman Powell by actually a decent margin, because the next most negatively leveraged player is Jaime Jaquez at negative 5.2. So it's not like he's an outright fade for me, but he's in nearly half the field's lineups bags. My last run of Sims, I have him in 20% of lineups. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One of it being that he's just flat out over-owned in our data. Another part of it, too, is that you've got the big contest, the $8 over on DraftKings today. It is the $100,000 prize pool. Or 100,000 to first prize pool out of the 300,000. So it's a little bit more top heavy, which we've seen more of that this year, the 100,000 and 300,000 with the more top heavy payouts. We don't really see the $400,000 prize pool with the 100,000 up top, or sometimes we'll occasionally see the 50K up top, but it's kind of been the more standard practice, $300,000 prize pool, 100K to first place. And it does make some of your lineups a little bit more contrarian. We have the top heavy payout section selected in the Sims. So I think that's also part of the reason why somebody who's a little bit overowned ends up getting a little bit more magnified in the Sims as somebody to be underweight to the field too. So I will be hoping this is not a Norman Powell 40-point ceiling game, because I look like I have about half the field in terms of what his exposure is. So that's the big one for me.
Yeah, I get it. The usage is certainly the thing for him where if he doesn't get there through just scoring points, I mean, Josh and DK mentioned this right before us. He's not going to get there through rebounds. He's rebounding at the same pace Davion Mitchell is, lower than Drew Smith, and about the same rate as Pele Larson. So he's not really doing a lot of that. Assist-wise, not doing a lot of that, but he is averaging 1.1 fantasy points a minute because he's largely shooting the lights out this year, 62% true shooting. I don't think that regresses here versus Atlanta, but certainly it can in any given spot. So I get it. And I think, to me, it's like one of those things where you kind of land on, I'm under on this guy. And you kind of, for you with Powell, you have an actual argument. For you with Portis, it's just like, well, I didn't get there. And I guess he kind of sucks now. So I think you can make the case really for any of these guys. If you want to fade one of them a little bit, there's such a concentrated core today that if you can make the case at all in your own brain, I think it's okay to be under the field on at least one of that top 5.
We also have, of these 7 games on DraftKings, this will be a little bit tricky. 4 of them are locking right at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So there's a scenario here where we go into lock. More than half of the games are going to be locked on DraftKings. And we might have Joel Embiid, John Morant, Cedric Howard all still questionable heading into that lock, which could do some interesting things in terms of how you want to construct your ROI boosts. And do you want to give yourself any flexibility for late swap, which is a question we have from M. Grizzly here. Wants to know, are you boosting anyone to position for late swap? So here's what I am thinking about doing. So number one, I want to just wait to see if there's anything that ends up coming in as far as Joel Embiid news comes, because, that is one of the games that's going to be locking, not right at lock, but at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. But let's say that we go into lock and Joel Embiid is still questionable. Then in that scenario, I'm going to want to be boosting Tyrese Maxey and Paul George a little bit. Not crazy, but like 5 to 10% ROI boost, just so they show up in a little bit more lineups. And then if we get for Memphis, the Memphis guys still questionable heading into lock, in that kind of scenario, I'm going to want to be doing little ROI boosts to Jaren Jackson Jr. and Cam Spencer, maybe Jalen Wells. But also keep in mind that these guys are kind of priced for John Morant to be out. Like John Morant's already missed a bunch of time, so the pricing's a little bit more efficient already. John Morant hasn't played in a game since December 15th, so he's missed almost 2 weeks. And even the couple of games that he played, he had missed almost a month before that. So John Morant misses a month. He plays 2 games limited minutes and then gets hurt again. Now he's missed another 4 games, been out a couple of weeks. So Memphis is kind of already priced for John Morant to be out. So I don't know that Morant being out, unless Coward is also out, would open up a ton of value for Memphis, just because they're kind of already priced for that situation. Gigi Jackson does become an interesting value option, though, if he ends up drawing another start like we saw the other day.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Gigi Jackson rebounds a little bit, scores a little bit, about 1 fantasy point per minute this year. And he's been higher in the past at certain points of his career as well. I'd agree with that. But, I'm assuming these guys play. I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like you get a bias where in my brain, I was like, oh, all these guys are going to get ruled out today. It's the day after Christmas. Like they're probably phoning it in. Kind of like we saw the slate before Christmas too, where a bunch of guys just kind of getting ruled out early or throughout the course of the day. I'm assuming that because everybody else is playing that Morant and Coward will play. But if they are both out, I agree that does change the equation materially. And I can't imagine playing these guys if they weren't both out.
Yeah, if they're both in, then the thing that's tricky about Memphis compared to, say, like Denver last night is, so the situation with Denver was these guys are already pretty decent value. It's the last locking game on the slate. If you play them and better value doesn't open up earlier, it's like I'm cool with having a bunch of guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. on last night's slate. But for something like today, the thing that makes it tough with the Memphis guys is Memphis is the last game on the slate. But if John Morant and Coward both play, then I don't really want the other guys, because then they're all overpriced, because you got these guys are priced as if John Morant should be out, and then he plays, then the entire team looks terrible in that kind of scenario. So I'm actually curious to look at the optimal rate to the Memphis guys as of right now. Are there any of them that you're currently getting exposure to in a way that matters more than like a couple percentage points here or there?
No, literally the only guy I'm getting is Aldama at about 2%. So it's not the spot for me, I think, based on at least having, Morant and Coward in the data set. But I'm not even close to any of these guys being a 5x value. So they really aren't, going to pop up naturally.
Optimal rates, we've got Cam Spencer being optimal 2% of the time, Aldama optimal 2% of the time, just under 2% of the time for Jalen Wells, and not a single other player even a 1% optimal rate. So yeah, you get this situation for Memphis where should these guys end up playing, then everything looks pretty terrible on Memphis. So I don't really want to jam them M Grizzly just because of that, but I'll do little ROI, which honestly, little ROI boost might even, they project poorly enough. The little ROI boost still might not even have them land in any lineups anyway, which if that's the case, then I probably just won't really end up with a lot of Memphis exposure, which I'm okay with. Cream wants to know, do we like Trae Young tonight? Let's see. Trae Young, is he showing up in lineups for me? I think he's a good contrarian option. I'm about 2x the field on him right now, Spags. We've got him projected for just 5% ownership. I've got a little bit more than 10% of him. So with that in mind, I think Trae Young, if you want to spend up and be a little bit contrarian, also, there's a lot of ownership going to Miami in the event that this is a really up-paced game. Then having Trae Young in some of those Miami lineups, it's not something that's ever necessary for NBA, but it doesn't hurt if that just kind of naturally occurs. I think Trae Young's a pretty good contrarian option.
I mean, I think with how owned Jalen Johnson is, if you just kind of assume the pecking order reshuffles, at least for one day today, and you get a little bit more Trae Young going, I think that's possible. I mean, I thought this the same slate, did the deeper dive with Josh earlier in the week, and I think we had talked this with Jalen Johnson being chalk on that slate as well. And it's like, is Trae Young leverage? Yeah, but if he's like 9,500, whatever he was on that slate, a little bit hard to get there. Now we're under 9K, we're getting closer. I feel like Trae, based on how he's played this year, and obviously, his availability hasn't helped, I feel like he should almost be like 8K to 8,500 at this point. Like he should be really more towards the lower end. So I'm not totally there price wise, but I do agree that he makes, like, with that total and just with what Jalen Johnson is, I think Johnson has sort of reasserted himself as the alpha of the team. And it does seem like he's going to be there for the future. Trae Young, I think probably not going to be there for the future, but coin toss at best. I think that's sort of reshuffled, but if Jalen Johnson fails, it might just be because Trae went nuts and he's as due as anybody, I think, at this point.
Related because we just brought up that game, but Bilbo Swaggins, Bam Adebayo is out today. So that's the reason that we're seeing all this ownership go to Miami. So once again, going back to the Miami Heat as a team, we've got here for ownership, 53% to Khalil Ware, 48% to Jaime Jaquez Jr., 45% to Norman Powell. You've got 26.5% to Andrew Wiggins. So this is the most popular team on the slate, and it's because there's no Tyler Hero and there's no Bam Adebayo. So is Bam contrarian today? That's one way to ask the question. Yeah, I mean, yes, if we're just going to be literal about it, yes. But probably the more pertinent answer is that he is out today. So, people in chat saying, but is he contrarian was the question. Sure. If we just want to answer the question literally, sure, he's contrarian today.
He'll cut your ownership product real seriously. If you put him in a lineup, boy, you can play whatever chalk you want around that. And it won't matter much.
Yeah. Bam nukes the slate. He will nuke your lineups if you end up playing him. By the way, we just got a report, John Morant on track to play today. All right. And Cedric Howard also on track to play today. So there we go. Everything that we talked about in terms of the Memphis guys, this makes our life a whole lot easier because now they're just not going to show up in any lineups at all. And we could feel pretty damn good about there not being necessary value with both those guys on track to play. I know it's coach speak. It's not like 100% they're in, but more often than not, Spags, if somebody's on track to play, they're usually, I can't remember last time we got the word that somebody's on track to play and that they got off track.
They would have to get hurt in warmups or something, which, happens very, very sporadically. I think people feel like it happens more than it does, but yeah, I'm with you. If they say on track to play, that usually means that they are going to be in. I wouldn't assume that they're for sure in, but like, obviously they're 99% in.
All right, let's start answering some of your guys' super chats here. We've got one here from Jeff Williams. He wants us to rank Johnson. I'm going to assume Jalen Johnson. Are there any other? Yeah, it can't be Trae Johnson. It has to be Jalen Johnson. So he wants to know Jalen Johnson, Mamu, and Portis points per dollar plays on DraftKings. All right. So for me right now, between those guys, Johnson, Mamu, and Portis, so like Jalen Johnson's a great play, but he's just expensive enough to where he's not going to be as good points per dollar compared to some of those other guys. So I'm going to go Portis 1, Mamu 2, Jalen Johnson 3.
See, I still have Jalen Johnson as I feel like stochastic data can't be that far off, but I think it's still like a 5.7x value.
Yeah.
So I think it's Johnson, even though he is the most expensive, I think he is still your one guy. I would have Mamu at number 2 at 5.4x and then Portis at 5.3. They're all definitely good plays. Like, not that the 5x thing is like, that doesn't matter in 2025 DFS as much. But yeah, still a good bar to have. And I would still have Jalen Johnson being underpriced for what he is.
Looks like we did get a projection and ownership update recently. So let's see, based on this, just from our projections, it's Portis 1, it is Mamu 2, and Jalen Johnson 3. All of them do project well on a points per dollar basis. And Jalen Johnson is a pretty high priority play. It's just because he's more expensive than the other guys. Just from a points per dollar projection standpoint, he ends up being a little bit lower. But still,
Portis is a 6x, it looks like. So that he's definitely higher in the stochastic data than I'm giving him credit for.
Yeah, still a good play, though, Jalen Johnson. Let's see. What do we have next? We've got a question from Jacob Kusaya. Jacob wants to know, what are our thoughts on Mark Williams in GPPs? Let's see. Do I have Mark Williams in lineups? Yeah, he looks pretty damn good to me at $5,400. Good matchup against the Pelicans. Not quite as good as Kel'el Ware or Moussa Diabate as center options, but he's my third favorite center play on the slate. He's the guy I have the third most exposure to with center-only eligibility. What are you doing with Mark Williams today?
I am getting such a preponderance of Ware and Diabate that nobody else really matters to me at center. Muklashvili is power forward center, but I am getting him at center a decent amount as well. Same thing for Bobby Portis and whatever lineups I'm getting him. He's coming into center. I am low on Mark Williams, but at Stochastic gave him a little bit of minutes boost from where he was earlier today. So I do think he looks like a more viable play. Obviously, the Pelicans playing better lately, but they are a team that can brick some shots, and Mark Williams being on the court against them without a real center presence too, like seems like a possibility. So I don't mind him, but like, I'm just going to cast my fate with what everybody else is casting their fate with Ware and Diabate for the most part.
By the way, we did get, like I said, a projections update. I want to go to this real quick because something did happen that I suspected was going to happen. The Toronto guys came down a little bit here. So we've got now 36% ownership to Quickly and 26% to Ingram. So what we saw before was, Ingram was about 35% and Quickly was 45%. Like you had said, Spags, it's the Wizards. It's still a good matchup. But now that some of the prop lines and the betting lines for this game in general have adjusted for Scotty Barnes being expected to play, Barnes' ownership has come up. And then quickly, Ingram and Mamu Kavalishvili have all come down in terms of ownership and projection. Just kind of a component of when you've got little weights for the betting markets incorporated into projections. But it's good to know that that is something that could influence projection just for your guys' own information, because just me obviously being super in the weeds compared to how other people might be with our data and how it works and whatnot. That was why I kind of had a suspicion that Quickly and Ingram were going to come down a little bit. But what do you make of them now with slightly lower projections and ownership?
I mean, for me and Quickly, I still have them pretty high. So I'm going to be there above the field regardless. But I imagine because the ownership's coming down, I'll get less with, I think, the way it'll work in the sim with the ownership pool. So like, I'm cool with that. I think Quickly to me still feels kind of like a 50% play. I don't want to be under the field at 36 because it is a spot against Washington. Guys like Quickly, we do gain, some steal upside, some assist upside, maybe a few more easy rebounds for him as well. Anybody against the Wizards, I feel like it's generally going to be in play. It would have been a smash play without Barnes, but if people are going to hop off the train now, I'm still willing to be there.
And then anybody who's lower owned on Toronto that you're considering, like Mamu's come down to 19%. We've got Scotty Barnes. He's the one guy who's come up now at 17%. Anything else stand out to you on Toronto now that situation is kind of sorted and we've got updated projections and ownership?
I still don't mind Jamal Shed. I mean, I feel like he and Murray Boyles are two value plays now in a slate where it feels like we're not going to get much better value opening up. Obviously, Diabate, a great value. Mamu's still an okay value, though he's kind of priced, I think, mostly appropriate at this point, maybe a few $100 cheaper than he should be. But no, like I think everything's going to come down a little bit for me. And, if I got Mamu at 20%, I feel good about that. Shed at 15, feel good about that. Murray Boyles at 10 to 15. I think that all looks good because those guys are just a little bit too cheap for the matchup against the Wizards.
All right, let's get back to your guys' questions. We've got one from 182 Zinc. He wants us to rank the top 3 center plays over on FanDuel. All right, I am going to check out my FanDuel lineups here and at center. All right, so the top 2 center eligible players, it's pretty clearly to me 1 Ware and 2 Portis. They also both have power forward eligibility. So I don't know if you mean guys that are only center, but if we're talking about guys who you could roster at center, it's going to be Ware number 1 for me. And that's a bit like way number 1 is going to be Kel'el Ware. Then you got Bobby Portis number 2. Then 3, you get a handful of guys that are kind of grouped together, like Mamu Kavalishvili, Mark Williams, Moussa Diabate. They're all comparably priced and comparably owned, all 15 to 20% owned, and 5K, 5,700, 5,400. I'm going to go with Mark Williams, who I perceive as having the highest ceiling out of Mamu, Diabate, and Williams.
Yeah, that's a good call there. I mean, Ware seems criminally underowned on FanDuel based on the optimal rate. I mean, a 48% chance being optimal, only 39% ownership. I mean, Ware was one of those guys that looked good before Bam got ruled out in stochastic data. Then you take Bam off, and it's a lot easier to see a pathway for him to actually go nuts here. He's going to be higher owned, it looks like, on DraftKings, and I think FanDuel looks underrepresented. But I agree that it's Ware, Portis, Mamu, Mark Williams. If you really want to pay down and roll the dice, you get Brook Lopez in those late games. He's not a DK play today. But it's a little bit thin.
Shout out to Tyler. Tyler Tech 7 won first in the NBA 20K and won thanks to the Sims and you guys. Thank you very much. And then he leaves us a nice smiling emoji. So Tyler, happy to see that you had some success with the Sims there. And for everybody else, once again, want to remind you, we do have our holiday sale ongoing. If you want to win a GPP like Tyler, here's how you give yourself the best chance to do so. Sign up for any package you want here at Stochastic with the promo code GIFT, all capital letters, GIFT. You could use this on any of our weekly, monthly, core, max packages, whatever it is that you want for DFS. Sign up with the promo code GIFT before Sunday, and that is going to get you 20% off. So take advantage of that deal for the holidays before it goes away. Let's see. Was there any other super chats here for us? We've got, yes, Travis. I'm just going to be real. As of now, what's the best single entry plays on DraftKings at each position? I think I can't make it to lock, LOL. All right. I mean, we're not that far away. We're only 30 minutes away, but absolutely. We could give them to you, our favorite options at each position as of now. And also, considering we already got the Memphis news, I don't think we're going to get any massive. I mean, this could always backfire when you say it's an NBA DFS bags. I don't expect us to get any massive changes in the next 30 minutes, though.
Yeah. I think we should be good, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't leave, guys. But I don't think anything's going to change. All right. So favorite options at each position for a DraftKings GPP. All right. So starting at point guard for me, that is going to be. Boy, point guard's an interesting position. One of the reasons that Quickly's pulling a lot of ownership is not just because of some of the situation with Barnes and the prop lines and whatnot, but point guard's also kind of shitty today on DraftKings. So I'll give you a contrarian option that I think you might be able to get on board this bags because he's been one of your guys in the past, but Davion Mitchell.
I hate that this is like I have to keep carrying Davion Mitchell forever. He actually, I have him lower projected than in Stochastic, which surprised me, but I'm low on Davion today. I'm still team Quickly. Like you mentioned, it is a shitty point guard slate. Like Anthony Black priced to the moon now for a guy without Suggs. Ryan Rollins playing off the bench. He can earn minutes, but there's no guarantee there. Derek White, LaMelo, probably not appropriate price tags, really. I think Quickly is your best play, and if people jump off, great. He's still a point guard for me.
Yeah, it's always when people ask favorite plays at each position, I never know really the exact right way to answer, because if it's just who do I have the most exposure to, it's Quickly, but I'm also a little bit underweight to the field to him in my last run. So it's, am I answering somebody who I'm the most overweight to the field to? Is it just who do I have the most exposure to? Because the reality, like I said, is even though I have the most exposure to Emmanuel Quickly, I'm also underweight to the field to him. But it's a shitty point guard position. Quickly is definitely the guy you're going to be playing in cash games and tournaments. You want to some extent. It's just you want more or less of him than the field at his ownership mark there. Let's go to shooting guard. Shooting guard for me, that is going to be Brandon Ingram.
It's going to be Norm Powell for me still. I get the issues with the points, and if he doesn't score, you won't be there. But, if we're not going to play a guy with high usage in a game where there's a 250 point combined total, I think that's, what are we doing? Let's play Norm Powell.
All right, let's go to small forward. And at small forward, I have Jaime Jaquez Jr.
I also have Jaime, but I will go a little more contrarian and go Dillon Brooks, who was going through the Pro 100 numbers today. Greg, if you had to guess, how many points per 100 possessions more does Devin Booker score than Dillon Brooks this year?
Probably not. Dillon Brooks has been scoring a shit ton this year, so the gap is probably fairly close.
36.1 points per 100 possessions for Booker, 34.6 for Brooks, which is crazy to me. And they're both shooting around league average, about 57, 58% true shooting. But Brooks has been good. So I think he's a fun contrarian small forward, power forward play.
All right. Power forward for me. The one I have the most exposure to is Bobby Portis. He's also massively chalky at the position compared to everybody else. But I have an option for you guys that not necessarily low owned, but I do think he's kind of an interesting leverage option. Andrew Wiggins. Of all the guys who are pulling all this ownership for Miami, Norman Powell, Khalil Ware, we've got Jaime Jaquez Jr. Andrew Wiggins is the one core guy for the team who is not uber popular for today. Not contrarian or anything. He's right around 20% owned, but kind of interesting to me as to be somebody to be overweight to if you're going to be underweight to maybe one or two pieces. Like I'm underweight to Norman Powell, Spags isn't. But I think in that kind of scenario, it's kind of interesting to play Andrew Wiggins in place of Norman Powell in some lineups.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I do have a good amount of Wiggins as well in lineups without Powell. I think that happened naturally with the Sims. So I'm cool with that. But I will go Jalen Johnson. He's your chalk for a reason. Though the ownership is coming down a little bit, only 22.5% ownership in the most recent run of data. It's going to probably move for a little bit more with Murray Boyles getting ruled out a moment ago. But for Jalen Johnson, still think he's a very good play. And he's just been such a lights out producer that I've been on pretty much every time he's had a good game. And for me, I just don't run away from those guys, and they've hit for me enough times.
By the way, Murray Boyles is officially out. Was there? I feel like there was a report earlier that him and Barnes were both expected to play. It came out at the same time before. Am I remembering incorrectly?
Yeah, right before we came on, when it was Josh and DK got that announcement, and then he was ruled in, and now he's ruled back out. So kind of odd.
Yeah, does make you maybe a little bit concerned about how healthy Scotty Barnes is when Murray Boyle is in, then out, and whatnot, but. It's worth noting that Murray Boyles is officially out. But I was a little confused when I saw him taken out of our production. Like, didn't I see a report before that he was in? And then, ruled in and out in the same day. So almost if it just probable and doubtful, and he would have hit for the cycle today. Center, that's Khalil Ware for me today. That's a pretty easy one.
Yeah, Khalil Ware. I mean, if not him, Diabate, like those two are going to be so much of my ownership today.
All right, let's see what we have next. Thank you for the super chat there, Travis. We got Zachary Cooper, best plays by position on FanDuel. All right, so same question that we just got for DraftKings, but now on the FanDuel side. So let me go back over to the FanDuel lineups that I have built, and over on FanDuel, which quite a different outlook of a slate just because it includes the two later games. So point guard for me, that is going to be Shaedon Sharpe on FanDuel, Spags.
Yeah, Shaedon Sharpe would be the most obvious, I think, optimal rate guy. Kevin Porter Jr. also looks under-owned, so I'll go his way. He's expensive there. He's $9K on DraftKings, $9,100 on FanDuel, but he does have that massive upside, and he's playing crazy minutes. And his optimal rate's at 26%, only about 18% ownership. So KPJ looks good at point guard.
All right, so our answers are going to be pretty similar because Porter's my answer at shooting guard with him having the MPE.
Okay, I'll go Shaedon Sharpe at shooting. Now I'll go Norm Powell. Norm Powell, my boy on both sites, I think. Definitely more appealing on DraftKings with the 3-point bonus, and he's not going to get you a ton of defensive peripherals at this stage of his career, but he can, theoretically, against Atlanta. So I don't mind him at shooting guard on FanDuel.
FanDuel should just be called the MPE site. Every single player gets MPE on FanDuel. Like, and some of the guys, it's like, hey, you're a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward, power forward, and a center. They're very liberal with the positions they give to, especially because some guys, they just give them positions they've never played in their entire lives. It's just like, cool, you're a point guard now. All right, Anthony Davis, point guard eligible, or whatever.
My sense of FanDuel this year, though, is like they just took feedback from all of the people who are regulars and like, what can we do? Oh, tournaments where you don't lose money? Great. Like multi-position eligibility for everyone possible, even if it doesn't make sense. Great. Like I appreciate them trying. Like it's good to have sites trying again.
Yeah, they've definitely mixed up their product. And in general, I've played more on FanDuel this season than I have in some other previous NBA seasons. There are things they've done that I like. In particular, the guaranteed overlay contest. Like, how could I not enjoy that as a DFS player? But yeah, then there's some other just weird things that they're doing, like giving everybody MP at every single position. So that's anyway why we end up with the same options, but us listing them at different positions. And then you go and you look at the small forward spot. It's like every single player at small forward almost is power forward and small forward eligible. But small forward, that'll be Jaime Jaquez for me.
I like Jaquez. Kawhi looks a little bit under-owned as well. I do have him pretty highly projected today. 9,200 is pretty expensive, but actually, no, he looks over-owned. But let's stick with Kawhi. He's a little bit over-owned, but I think still a good play. And I'm not sure if he's going to be 33% owned for a guy that's not on, well, it's only on the late game FanDuel slate. I feel like those guys don't end up super chalky from what I know of FanDuel, but Kawhi looks like a good play still.
I'll go with Bobby Portis at power forward.
Power forward. Let's go Ware at power forward for me.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Ware at center. Now go Bobby Portis at center.
I'm gonna go with the contrarian Bam Adebayo. So,
Yeah.
I will go Mamu. I'll go Mamu at center. He's only center only on FanDuel, not power forward eligible. One of a few guys without an MPE. Diabate not bad on FanDuel, but that price tag's up enough. I think those guys, I view those guys similarly, but Mamu does seem to have a higher optimal rate.
All right, let's see what else we have for super cuts. Oh boy, a bunch of them coming in. Miami Mike, he wants us to evaluate his lineup for him here. He's got Tyus Jones, Brandon Ingram, Royce O'Neal, Paulo Banchero. He's got Khalil Ware. He's got an unfortunate spelling error with Diabate in there, and then he's got
Mushfi. Mamu, I presume, is that one.
Okay. All right. Mamu, and then Trae Young. I don't have, there's nobody in that lineup I have a massive issue with. I'll have to check, see how much Tyus Jones exposure I have, though, when I do my next run of Sims. He might be the one I don't have very much of.
Yeah, O'Neal's not really a guy for me, and I am low on Banchero. At least, I'm going to run stuff again because we're going to need to get a little more data in. I don't mind the lineup. It just kind of feels like a lineup to me.
Yeah, there's nobody in there who I would consider, like a must play that you're missing. I do agree. Like, if we're nitpicking a little bit, I don't think that Tyus Jones nor Royce O'Neal are the strongest plays on the slate. But let's see. I don't think that they're like outright fades for me either. Just finished getting a Sims run through. Actually, I don't have Tyus Jones. And then I've got some of Royce O'Neal. He's fine. So yeah, if you could switch out Tyus, I would say him. Everything else is generally fine for me, though.
Do you think Tyus is going to get more minutes? Because Stochastic right now has him at 21 and he is starting. I mean, it's not a guarantee that he actually plays a lot more minutes, but it feels like he might get one or two more now that he's officially starting.
So let's look at some of the other games that he's started this year. I mean, he started 4 games in a row now. So it's been his role. He did play. So his minutes have been weird because his first 2 starts, he played 18 and 19 minutes. Then he got a little bit more and played 26 against Golden State. But then last game, he did get up to 35 as a starter against Portland. So minutes are all over the place. Like you'll get 4 games as a starter, and the minutes have ranged from 35 to 18.
Yeah, I wonder why that would be.
Not foul trouble related either, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's odd that Tyus Jones would get that many minutes because that was one I was thinking of. I was like, didn't he get like 35 last game? But yeah, there is a downside there. Orlando has guys they could swap to. Like they could always play the Penda, Richardson, Jet Howard tier of guys, and they seem happy to do that sometimes. Tyus Jones, a reliable hand at point guard, and the minutes seems to be trending in a positive direction. So I don't hate that part, I guess.
All right, our guy Ace of Spade, he has got the normal tiers question, but with a little addendum added to it. He says today's his birthday. Shout out to Ace of Spade. Happy birthday to you. He has been what I assume is the most loyal tiers play. If it was not for Ace of Spade, I don't even know that DraftKings would still offer tiers, because Ace of Spade for the last 2 years or so, nearly every show has left a question about DK tiers, which I also think probably inspires some other people to play DK tiers. So Ace of Spade, I think single-handedly maybe keeping that product alive. But tier 1 Spags, we've got Jalen Johnson, Tyrese Maxey, Josh Giddey, and Jaylen Brown. That is going to be Jalen Johnson for me.
Yeah, Jalen Johnson is your number 1 guy.
Tier 2, Kevin Porter Jr., Devin Booker, Scotty Barnes, Paulo Banchero, and Trae Young. I'll go with Paulo Banchero.
I'll go KPJ in that group.
Okay. Tier 3, that is going to be LaMelo Ball, Pascal Siakam, Joel Embiid, Derek White, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. I'll go Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I'd go Embiid. That's a terrible tier, but that would be Embiid.
We're starting to see the minutes come up. It's always sketchy when he's questionable on the injury report, but there is late swap in tiers. But I mean, competitive games, he's playing 30 minutes now. Tier 4, we've got Alex Sarr, Brandon Ingram. We've got Mikal Bridges, Onyeka Okongwu, and Brandon Miller. That is going to be Ingram for me amongst that group.
Yeah, also Ingram. The Wizards matchup makes everybody look better for the Raptors.
Tier 5, Trey Murphy, Zion Williamson, Norman Powell, Ryan Rollins, Paul George, Derek Queen, Santi Aldama, Anthony Black. That's going to be Norman Powell.
There we go. Norm Powell for me too.
And then finally, tier 6, we've got Vooch, we've got Kobe White, we've got Conca Nipple, we've got Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Peyton Pritchard, CJ McCollum, Benedict Mathurin, Cam Spencer. I always feel like tier 6 is they just take a random group of players. Like, sure, for no reason, these are just the guys who are going to be in tier 6. Let's see. Who is it amongst those guys for me? Checking the names. I think it's Kobe White for me.
I like Kobe White too. I don't mind Knipple if you are kind of chalky with the rest of the tiers, I guess. But that tier doesn't do a whole lot for me.
All right, let's see what else we have for super chats. We've got here Kenneth Johnson, best value plays tonight on FanDuel. All right, so best value plays. So if we're just talking cheap guys on FanDuel, because the actual best value plays on FanDuel are, to me, actually not on the cheap end. It's guys like Kalel Ware or Jaime Jaquez or Bobby Portis in the mid-range. If we're just talking sub 5K guys, are 5K and lower, Jordan Goodwin, Sandro Mamakavashvili. Yeah, I'll say those two.
Yeah, I think Sandro on FanDuel has to be your best value if you're willing to give up the center spot. I mean, Brooke Lopez, also center spot, one of the better values. I mean, just based on projection, Jaime Jaquez seems like a good value, but he's not. Yeah, he's priced 5,900.
Yeah, like I said, the best values are not actually the cheapest guys. I just get the sense that the question was meant in terms of who are the best cheap guys for him to get to on the slate. So kind of the best value options are actually the mid-range on FanDuel, but those are a couple of cheap options for you as well. Zachary Cooper wants to know plays from Detroit, Utah, and Clippers, Portland for the FanDuel slate. All right, let's see. What do I have in the lineups I've built out from Detroit, Utah, and Clippers, Portland? Kawhi is one. Harden to a lesser extent. The last couple games are honestly pretty weak games to be rostering, though. Kawhi's the main one. Nobody really from Portland stands out. And the player I have the most exposure to from Detroit, Utah is 13% of Cade Cunningham. So the only real priority is Kawhi, and then James Harden, somebody else who warrants some exposure. Is there anything else that you think is missing from those couple of games I should have said?
I mean, I think Shaden Sharp is one of those guys that looks pretty.
Oh, right. My bad. I forgot Sharp. I overlooked him when I was looking at my exposures there.
Yeah, the uptick with no Grant and still having no Scoot, no Drew, I think helps out those guys, get him out. Avdia, I would still also take some tournament shots on, given the fact that he's not super high value on FanDuel, but he does have that triple-double upside. I think generally when you have a few guys missing from the rotation. But yeah, I think the Clippers, to me, it's mostly Kawhi and Harden there, along with Brooke Lopez. And then for Portland, the Utah-Detroit game does not look super appealing, I think, no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. Green check mark. What is the optimal number of heat in the Sims? Let's see. I don't know if there's like one optimal amount of players to get, but it looks like the majority of my lineups have like 3 players from the Heat.
Yeah, like 2, 3 feels right to me. I think if you were to run like just an optimizer, you might get 4 or 5, depending on the lineup, which would be a little bit too much. But I think generally, if you're trying to capture like guys of having tournament upside, I think 2 to 3 is probably your correct amount.
Keep in mind also only a 7-game slate on DraftKings. That game also pretty clearly contains the most value. There's no Bam Adebayo or Tyler Hero for the Miami Heat. So it is fine to be having like 4 players from the Heat in an individual lineup, but like 2 to 3 is what I have for the most part. Jeremy Johnson, Jovic on FanDuel is a pivot from where? So if I'm going to get a pivot off of the popular guys on Miami, my answer is going to be Andrew Wiggins. I'm overweight to Wiggins.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think Larson, people have been asking about Larson a lot in the chat. I mean, shooting guard, small forward eligible. He's not a great fantasy producer at only 0.79 on the year per minute. But, like he's not going to be owned as much as some of the other guys. And like he and Davion Mitchell, if they were to somehow have outlier days, this is me not caping for Davion Mitchell, I promise. But I do feel like if those guys have outlier days, they would pull from the much higher owned Heat. I don't know what the likelihood is, but at least, Larson and Mitchell are both starting now.
Hey, and right here, Joski wants to know Pelle Larson for FanDuel GPP, $3,800 and starting. So I prefer other Heat guys, but I do get overweight to Larson in the sim. So I don't have an issue with him. There's just other guys I prefer from Miami Heat, but he's certainly viable.
Yeah, he's cheap. There aren't a lot of values in his price range. I get it if you're going to play him a little bit. I wouldn't go nuts on him, though, and lock him and everything.
Corey Bomber, Trae Young, and okay, so Trae Young, Devin Booker, or KPJ for a DK single entry. Who do we like the most just from a projection standpoint? All right, if we're just looking at projections, then that's Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah, I think that's KPJ. I do think, like Greg mentioned earlier in the video, and we talked about, I think Trae is more appealing if you're not playing Jalen Johnson in a lineup, just because you can get that leverage there on, players going to be owned by a quarter of the field, something like that.
Yeah, I've got I'm nearly 3x the field on Trae Young. Part of that's because he's only 5% owned, so it's pretty easy to get overweight to the field to him. But yeah, I like Trae Young a good amount as a contrarian option for today. But we're just talking projections. Kevin Porter Jr. Rich, Hawkes not starting. Was that expected? Yeah, he pretty much never starts.
Yeah.
All right, that answers all of the super chats, Spags. By the way, we did get the starting lineup for the Raptors just now, and it is quickly Agbaji, Ingram, Barnes, Mamokovalishvili. So it is good to know that officially Scotty Barnes is starting. You never know when some kind of weird fuckery could be afoot and all of a sudden the starting lineup comes out and somebody not end up being in it, but he is in there. So we're all good to go on that front. Now from Discord, let's see what other Discord questions that we got. We have a bunch of them came in here. All right. Kraken Tile says, do we prefer Hawkes starting or coming off the bench? I think it's kind of a wash. A couple extra minutes if he starts, but a little bit more usage if he comes off the bench. But I mean, we've got confirmation he isn't starting now at this point. To me, I don't think it makes a massive difference on him one way or the other, though.
Yeah, same page as you. I mean, it generally is one of those things where, like, you have a guy off the bench, they can just get more runway to kind of get hot, earn more minutes as they go. So Hawkes has been playing that role all year. I mean, I don't follow the futures market as you do, Greg, but like, he's got to be a front runner for 6th man of the year, I would think, right now, or one of them.
He was, and then he's kind of regressed a little bit as of late. So he has fallen back a little bit. We do have him a little bit overowned, but I mean, he's still a 41% optimal rate for us on DraftKings today with 48% projected ownership. And then we've got him for, off the bench still. We got him projected for 31 minutes and 35 fantasy points at 6K. So yeah, he looks good coming off the bench. So I've no issues getting to Jaime Hawkes Jr. for today at all. Let's see. We've got Sniffs wants to know, how do we feel about Wendell Carter Jr. today? 8% owned, no go-go. Do you like him as a contrarian option? To me, really the biggest question is just opportunity cost.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue. Like, I actually think he would look really good on other slates. And frankly, he does get pretty appreciable rate upticks with just Wagner and Suggs out there. You see more shots for him, more assist opportunities, more, just has the ball in his hands more generally. But like Diabate and Ware, I think are such elite plays, and it's hard for me to move away from them. Obviously, a large portion of the field feels that way as well. So if you wanted to carve away some ownership for Wendell Carter, I wouldn't mind it. But he's not really a player that's like going to come over the top. It's like you're playing Jokic versus the chalk. You're playing a guy who's kind of similar to them, but maybe not quite as good.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's like, are you not playing Khalil Ware if you play Wendell Carter Jr. or something else? So hard to prioritize him, but not going to say like he's unplayable or anything like that. Ben P says he's got an entry in the night slate, the 222 tonight from the NBA Cup promo. Any suggestions? Don't usually play context that high as stakes, even 1 to 2 guys. All right, so favorite guys from the late slate for today: Kawhi, Shaedon Sharpe. I'd say those two.
Yeah, Kawhi and Harden both look pretty good to me. I think they would be priorities. I mean, on DK for the late slate, I do think the pricing looks better for Avdia and Sharp as well. Really the big thing for me with the late slate is that I would be trying, and I think the field's going to do it too, so I don't know if it's that advantageous, but you should be game stacking the Clippers game more in Detroit, Utah. I just think it's like somebody from Detroit can get there, and you have a few guys that look okay, but like the game stack for the Clippers Portland side looks a lot better.
Aaron in chat wants to know, who are the guys to fade for tonight's slate? So there's nobody who's really popular that I have 0% of, if that's what you mean as a fade. As far as guys who are really popular that I'm coming in a little bit underweight to the field to. I mentioned that Norman Powell is the one that I have the least amount of relative to the field, but nobody who I have in like 0% of lineups. Spags, as you're finalizing anything, anybody who would want to answer as a feed for tonight?
Yeah, I'm still low on Portis. I mean, that's the one. I'm now up on Mamu. Got there more because of Murray Boyles not being in. I think my biggest stand relative to like all the chalk is definitely Portis. I'm only getting him at 20% right now.
All right. We've got another super chat here. This is from T. Willis. He wants to know for a FanDuel GPP, John Morant and Bobby Portis or Trae Young and Kyle Kuzma. That's going to be Young and Kuzma for me. I don't know how many minutes. I would be surprised if John Morant plays a ton of minutes today.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't go Trae and Kuzma. I mean, Morant not priced to be playing limited minutes. He's kind of in that Zion situation where it's like the minutes probably aren't going to be high enough. He's priced like he's still mostly a version of the old guy, and we just don't know that. And like Greg mentioned, Ja's been out 2 weeks, so yeah, play the guys that are actually healthy and in the rotation.
And even the last couple of games Ja played, it was 25 minutes and under, and that was a couple weeks ago at this point. So John Morant, that's just going to be a tough click. So the latter for me. Let's see. We've got Mastermind Magruder wants us to rank Portis, Mamu, and Brooks for a high stakes. That is going to be in the order you have them listed for me: Portis, Mamu, and then Brooks.
Yeah, I'm with that. I do like Brooks, but I think Brooks is a really interesting pivot off of Portis. But I think that should be the correct order. The ownership is there for a reason.
All viable guys. Nobody in there who is, like unplayable or anything along those lines, but that is the order of the rankings for me. The next question, Young Metro Boomin asked us for top FanDuel plays at each position. We did touch on that already. Truffles wants to know thoughts on Jay Huff for today. I'm doing one final run right before lock, but I don't have very much, nor will I have very much of Jay Huff. There's just better center options at this point.
Yeah, I was getting Huff in a few lineups. I got him in one lineup tonight. There's theoretically more upside with Jackson still out, Isaiah Jackson still out, but I don't think it's like guaranteed that he gets run. It's never guaranteed run, unfortunately. It's a little bit hard to build around a guy like that.
We got a question here from Master PJ. Wants to know if I'm going to be doing a playback show today. So unfortunately, Master PJ, I don't know if people all saw this piece of news, but it's been a while since we did Playback, but Playback went out of business. They are not an operating site anymore. So no more Playback for that reason. That was why we ultimately ended up stopping there. So no show on Playback. M Grizzly, how much Norm Powell am I landing on? All right, let's see. So in my final run here, what did I end up with on Norman Powell? I have 23% of Norman Powell.
I'm 55% Norman Powell. So we are unfortunately not on the same page with that one.
Okay. So you're about even with the field because he is around 50% owned. And I have about half the field. So that's always also like before somebody said, anybody you're outright fading, it's, well, no, because there's a chance if Norman Powell's a massive game, I could win a GPP with him. So I don't want to make it seem like I have 0% of him, but I do have quite a bit less of Norman Powell than what the field has for today. We've got Einstein says, we mentioned the point guard position was pretty weak. Any interest in Giddey or Maxey? Maxey for sure if Embiid doesn't end up playing. Let's see. Who else do I like? So the guys I like for lower ownership are Trae Young and Davion Mitchell at point guard.
Yeah, I see the point of going with the Maxey and Giddey because like they are your two highest projected guys by a decent margin, but they're not that much better than Kevin Porter Jr., who's a little bit cheaper. I mean, Devin Booker, I'm not stoked about, but I think he's playable as well relative to those guys, projection wise. I see what you could try to do playing those guys. I don't mind it, but I think quickly to me is the best mix of value and projection.
All right, and now we've got Bando, Mamu, or Diabate. Diabate over Mamu for me.
Yeah, same for me. Diabate is like in almost every lineup play. Mamu is now getting in almost half my lineups because having no Murray Boyles, but it's not even close to the Diabate exposure.
John Moran said your coward will have minutes restrictions today. Nothing unexpected there. Einstein wants to know if we're getting to Jovic today. I am not.
No, I do think he makes theoretical sense as a lever against Ware because that's really the way that Ware lost minutes before when he was like less favorable. Part of the rotation is that Jovic took some away, but Jovic has been out a while and I don't know that there's a lot of minutes upside for him there. And frankly, Ware's been good enough that I think his role is a little bit more entrenched than it was before.
Sniffs wants to know if we're playing any of Quentin Rampage Jackson tonight. No, he's not making his way into my lineups.
No, he's not. The team is too fully stocked now to get to guys like Quentin Jackson.
And then Kuzuna wants to know, we're getting to the end of the show. People are really trying to mastermind their lineups here. They're starting to get some really obscure players getting asked about at the end here. Kuzuna wants to know if we're getting to any of Austin Newell as a punt value play. That's also a no for me.
I don't know why you would. I don't like. You need if Jalen Johnson were out, then maybe, but he's not.
And then Bees in Your Ass wants to know Trey and Mitchell or Quickly and Bain on DraftKings. That'll be Trey and Mitchell for me.
Quickly and Bain for me, I think.
It's tough. I just do you have much Bain exposure? I only have him in 3 out of 150 lineups.
Yeah, I got him at 9%, so a little bit above the field 7, but like keeper Jack's okay. I just don't think on this slate he's the kind of guy for me. He's playing Charlotte. Like I don't hate it.
And that is going to do it for us because we are at lock. By the way, here we go. Late present from the DFS gods to us. Joel Embiid is available to play today, so that means that we're heading into lock with nobody prominent questionable on the injury report. Joel Embiid is in. Cedric Howard and John Morant also both in, but with minutes restrictions, which is enough to make them not playable and everybody else on the team also not playable. So guys, thank you all very much for watching. If you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Keep in mind too, we do have the Christmas holiday sale going on right now. 20% off any stochastic package with the promo code GIFT, whether you want it to be a weekly package, a monthly package, core or max. Just sign up with that promo code GIFT and you are going to get yourself a 20% discount. The deal is expiring on Sunday, so take advantage of it before then. Guys, hope you had a great holiday. Have a great night. Good luck with all your lineups, and we'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Later.